Yes. I'm just getting this live stream finished up and going, and then I will share.
Perfect. Lisa from Austin, Texas in the house. Lovely with X4 Pharma. What else we got?
Perfect. We are live.
Crystal, Joyzy. South SF, Mark, what's up? All right, Jenna.
So I'm going to post this again in the chat for any of you who have just joined and may have missed. We're going to start with some questions. Have you guys answer some things about yourself so we can all get to know each other a little better. I posted my information as an example. So just to start, would like to wish everyone a happy day late Cinco de Mayo and a late May the 4th. May the 4th be with you.
All my Star Wars fans out there.
FYI, Shift Enter does not work in the chat, so don't learn that the hard way. And make sure you're posting to everyone. So my name is Jenna. I am a developer advocate at IBM. I'm from Detroit. I'm currently working in Detroit from home for the time being, but I actually work out of Austin. And my team is in New York, so we're still figuring things out. Something I love my dogs. I have little Yorkies, and they are forever puppies. They're always finding something new and annoying to do every day, even after 13 years of being annoying. And a quirk. So I'm obsessed with tuna sandwiches. If it's on the menu, I will order it. If it's bad, I won't come back. So, yeah, I'll order 2 things on a menu if they have tuna, because I have to try it. So Anthony will do his short intro. We'll give all of you time to answer questions about you, and then we'll do more formal instructions in a few minutes. We'll give some people some time to join.
Cool. Can you share the screen with me, Jenna, so that I can pull our slides up and then kind of share my intro?
Yes. Do you want to share your screen, or you want me to just switch?
I want to share my screen. Kick
Okay.
us off.
You should be able to do that. You are co-host, so you should be able to share. Perfect.
Right. All right. Is that coming through clear, Jenna?
Yes.
All right. So my name is Anthony Holloway, and title, I lead talent acquisition at Wobot Labs. We are on a mission to help millions of people living with anxiety and depression to improve their mood and live happier lives. And we're doing that through a mental health chatbot that's helping us scale digital therapy. So it's actually free in the App Store. You can play with it. You can try it out. Let me know. I'm obviously biased. I work there. I think it's great. But we're trying to scale digital therapy. So what does that mean? For us, it means we've been in business 3 years, but in the first day our app was live, we had more conversations with our users than a therapist could have in a lifetime. So we're not looking to replace therapists or replace medication, but we see there's a huge opportunity for technology to help scale therapy. So I'm helping lead that initiative. I'll tell you more about my story later, but the quick and dirty in terms of what I love and what's a quirk that's uniquely weird to me. What I love is peanut butter. I don't need the jelly or the bread or anything else. I can eat peanut butter straight out the jar. Yeah, that's something uniquely weird about me. I'll probably have some after this call. And a quirk, I would say, is when I was in 5th grade, there was this girl I had a crush on, and I used to sit behind her, and I noticed that she had beautiful handwriting. And I thought, well, you know, if I have great handwriting, maybe she'll notice me. Maybe, you know, I could actually talk to her. That ended up not being the case. And, you know, what I really just needed was some cojones to actually speak to this young lady. But I now have beautiful penmanship as a result of this 5th grade crush. So that's something uniquely weird about me. And we're going to dive in deeper. But I also want to give Jenna a chance to talk a little bit more about her background, and then we'll hop into the presentation and kick ourselves off. Jenna, do you want to talk a little bit more about the work you do with IBM and HTML5?
Sure. So moving back a little bit further. So in 2017, I moved from Detroit to San Francisco. I decided to take a chance on a coding boot camp. I put sending out my applications to medical school on hold, and I just decided that if I was going to find something that would be a better fit, I needed to commit 100% or not at all. So I took the dive, and I started Dev Bootcamp, and actually that's where Anthony and I met. And I told him right off the bat that we were going to be best friends. And I told him he didn't know it yet, but he would soon find out, which I think he did. And my life pretty much changed forever and for the better. So while I was at DVC, Anthony was always talking about this meetup, this workshop, this event going on. How important it was to network, how important it is to put yourself out there, try new things. So at least 2-3 days a week, from probably between 5 to 7 or 6 to 8, I would go to different meetup events, different workshops, network and meet people, learn new things before going back to DVC and working most of the night on trying to learn this coding stuff, which was really, really hard. If anyone says it comes naturally to them, they're probably lying, unless they're just, you know, their brain is like a computer. And I really liked it. I really liked learning new things and going through the difficult process with people, with other people. So I wasn't doing it alone. Made me feel a lot better. Made me feel more comfortable asking questions. So when I finished, I did a hackathon with a group of friends from our boot camp, and none of us prepared, but our project ended up winning 2nd place in the startup track. And IBM actually facilitated the hackathon for GE that was running the hackathon as part of their Minds and Machines conference. And someone approached me, and I got really excited at the opportunity to, wow, like I could participate in hackathons as part of my job. And I really, really enjoyed it. So finishing, I looked at apprenticeship opportunities. I wanted the opportunity to get a position where someone was invested in my learning and growth and not learning bad habits at my first job. So I joined IBM through the Tech Reentry program, and I joined a cloud engineering team, a backend team, and a UI team in the last 2 years. And I recently transitioned over to developer advocacy. So I've been doing events for the last 2 years locally in Detroit, and I've started doing them in Austin since I've moved there. And now that everything's virtual, trying to get resources and knowledge to as many people as possible. So we're going to work the live stream as far as we can take it.
Dope. Thank you for sharing, Jenna. All right, we're gonna kick this off. I saw in the chat, but Danielle, thank you for joining. We spoke earlier this week, so glad you're able to attend. So what I'm going to talk about tonight, I'm going to talk about how to win your dream job without having to apply online and what that looks like. So the agenda for the night is really the mistake that 90% of candidates make and how to avoid it, how to be 20 times more likely to land your job in 90 days or less, and how top performers actually ace interviews and are securing offers and getting salary increases, right? And then I'm also going to share with you an opportunity to level up today and share some different bonuses. But everything I'm about to teach you today, like Jenna, and there are even some people on this call right now that are a testament to how these things work. Jenna kind of we are really good friends because she has that kind of underdog mentality. Like, she's going to prove you wrong. She's going to outwork you. And she trusted me. So what I seek to do in this hour and a half is to gain your trust and to help you shift your mindset to start using some of these tactics and getting results today, maybe. So to kick us off, why do I do the work that I do? Well, it really starts with my mom. She's always had my back, as you can see here in this picture. And she's really important to me and inspires a lot of the different work that I do and how I show up as an individual. In addition to that, I'm the eldest of three. So also I do the work that I do, and I'm trying to help everybody on this webinar also selfishly to make my brother and sister proud, right? So that's kind of a bit of my why, my purpose, my mission. And my story starts with going to university, kind of wanting to make my parents proud, but not really knowing why I wanted to go to school, and kind of going to school more so to please my parents. And I think a lot of us might be able to resonate with that. Went to school and then ended up changing my major. And my parents like, oh, hell no. What are you doing? Like, aren't you trying to, figure this out? What are you doing? Why are you changing your major? Why are you making my life difficult as a parent? But I switched my major from civil engineering to math. So I got a degree in math. And it all worked out, right? That's me there with my grandmothers. But afterwards, I ended up working in banking. And this wasn't something that lit my soul on fire, right? Like, being on this webinar right now, like, this gives me energy. This gives me light. Helping everyone on this call, this gives me light. I feel like this is aligned with what I'm supposed to be doing. But at the time, I kind of just wanted the nice suit, right? And to have enough money to pay my rent and, hang out with my friends like that. Those were kind of my ambitions. Worked at this bank, got a little money in my pocket, right? I wasn't eating ramen anymore. I could order, Blue Apron. I could invest in my health a little bit more. But during the day, I kind of felt like this. Type yes into the chat if you've been in a job where 30 minutes feels like 30 hours and you're just counting down the hours until you leave work. Like, that was me working in banking. But through banking, and this is a common thread in my story and what I want to teach you here, through banking, I just said, okay, I'll use a rap analogy, but Kendrick Lamar, his album, To Pimp a Butterfly, right? I had to pimp my proverbial butterfly when I worked in banking. Like, I didn't love that job or that industry, but I had to find a way to leverage it. So what I did was I spoke to somebody, networked, ended up joining this community called Starting Block. And just imagine if you got 100 people into one room for 5 days and talked about building socially impactful businesses. That's Starting Block in a nutshell. So I did that fellowship, and then I had additional community of people that had my back. I even wrote a blog post about it. I had a phenomenal time, grew as a leader. And a lot of these people in this picture here that you see, are still my closest friends, right? I can call them. If I lost my job tomorrow, I could probably text 80% of the people in this photo, right? So that's another common thread in my story, which is continue to build community, regardless if, you dread your job, regardless of where you're at, start where you're at and build community, because later on, those are going to be people who can help speed up your job search. So through that community, I ended up meeting this woman on the left, Cameron Cloushy. And so I did that fellowship in 2015. 2016, I meet Cameron, and she's like, well, there's this job in California and I think you would be great for it. And it was a career coach at Dev Bootcamp. That's where I ended up meeting Jenna. And on paper, I didn't make a lot of sense for the role, but she had so much confidence in me based on the conversations that we had. She introduced me and we got an interview going. And I interviewed and I kind of made it all the way to the end of the process. And I thought I was doing great. And they rejected me. So y'all, I was tight. Like I thought this was my meal ticket out, right? Like I thought, okay, I hate this job in banking and I'm gonna get out. And then they reject me. So I am heated. You ever have one of those moments where like you're dying inside, but like you got to keep this mask on for the outside world to say that you're okay? This is how I felt, right? So type yes in the chat if you've ever, got a rejection and just felt your world crumble under you. That's what I was feeling. However, again, I'm a big believer in community. So I followed up with everyone who interviewed me and was like, no hard feelings, let's stay in touch. 2 weeks later, they call me and they're like, well, someone actually quit. Are you still interested in the role? And I'm like, of course I am. But, we're going to negotiate for a way higher salary than you originally wanted to speak to me about, because now I have a little bit more leverage. And I'll speak to you more about how you can do that. But my mind was blown. And then I had 2 weeks to move from New Jersey to Oakland, California. I had never visited the Bay Area, but I had a job I loved. So I'm texting my mom, I'm texting my friends, I'm sending them pictures of the website, I'm dancing. I'm so freaking excited. I'm telling all of my homies, I'm telling all of my best friends, and I'm milli rocking my way over to the West Coast. So that kind of starts my transition to current day. And again, this story and why I want to spend time here will kind of tell you why I think I'm in a unique position to help everyone on this call, regardless of where you are in your career, whether you're starting early or whether you're in your career, for 10 or 15 years and you want to make a pivot. Because I've made a few pivots and had 3 pivots in the past 3 years. So the first one was Dev Bootcamp, which I told you about. Again, got to work with some great people, went to some amazing places. That's actually Max, one of our lead instructors at a daybreaker party. So there's these parties that they throw where instead of having booze and alcohol, they actually have tea and energy drinks. And the party is at like 6 a.m. and the first hour is yoga and meditation. And then from 7 to 9 a.m., there's like a dance party. So I had, again, phenomenal job. I love this job so much. So you can imagine my pain when 9 months into this job, I'm loving it, I'm doing well, and they shut the company down. Yo, type yes in the chat if you've ever been in a situation where you've gotten let go, maybe recently because of COVID-19, maybe in the past because of unfair reasons. I was tight. And not only that, I was afraid, right? Because I had come all of this way, and I didn't have any friends. I didn't have any family. I didn't have a couch I could crash on, right? I had to be resourceful. So what I did was I landed on my feet. I ended up going to a company called Outco, and they teach engineers how to master the technical interview. So I got this, again, the same way you're going to see this thread, and we're going to talk about how you can repeat some of the success that I've had based on my experience. But again, this came from a referral. Somebody who went through Dev Bootcamp actually founded Outco or co-founded Outco. Again, get to work with some amazing people, did some amazing things. I was actually coaching engineers and also helping them get jobs. But 9 months into the role, they're like, this actually isn't working out. But I was contract to hire, back up a few steps. I was contract to hire, and I had to hit certain goals. And I hit those goals within 45 days, right? So I was able to bring nearly $20,000 in revenue. Also brought in 6 different partnerships, companies that actually wanted to hire our talent. And in the first 5 months, they gave me a raise. So again, I lost that job on March 8th. I walk into work and the former CEO at that time just said, hey, like, we're changing our business model, and that doesn't really include you. So imagine doing all of this great work, pouring your heart and soul into this, and now you're let go. So first company shuts down. This company lets me go. Again, I'm tight. I am like Denzel at the end of Training Day when like he really went off tight. And I love this quote by Mike Tyson, which is everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I've been punched in the mouth a few times the past few years. And I'm going to show you how I was able to navigate those and how you can apply this to any, I don't care if you're an engineer, if you're in real estate, you can apply these tactics I'm about to teach you. So when I got let go from that job, what did I do? Well, I had to grieve for a little while. So for the first 2 or 3 days, it was kind of grieving and taking time and taking some internal inventory. But within the first 2 weeks of them letting me go, I had my first interviews. Again, I'm going to show you exactly how I did that. And I had just paid my taxes, so I didn't have that much savings. So I also had to figure out a way, okay, how can I get some extra cash to also be able to pay my freaking rent? Because rents are so high in the Bay Area. And I was able to also secure, you know, a $4,000 contract where I was doing some consulting on helping a startup recruit some engineers. But that was all with the skill set that I'm about to teach you. And then I was able to land a job offer in only 21 days. Not only that, but that job offer came with a $30,000 raise. So I'm going to tell you exactly how I did all of this, but I want to set context for I went to university and I got a degree in school, and I'm not knocking education, but Mark Twain said something like, don't let school get in the way of your education. You can teach yourself all of these things and you can get way more progress and success in a shorter amount of time than you think is possible. But along that way to getting that job in 21 days, also had several rejections. So I don't want to paint my story as if it were all lollipop and rainbows, right? There were some challenges and some adversity I had to overcome. I also negotiated my role. I'm going to tell you about how essentially what I was able to do was say, hey, Wobot, you need a recruiter, but I actually think I can manage talent acquisition and do more than you're expecting of this role. So I was able to come in and show that my skill set actually aligned and was able to show that I could do more than they actually even needed. And because of that, I was able to give a counter offer and get that $30,000 raise that I told you about. And it was all because I was aligned. So I'm going to tell you exactly how that panned out. But I want to share the story with you so that you understand where we were coming from. Again, I would say check the app out. I'm a little biased, but it's great DIY therapy, I would say, and especially in this time. And also I have a blog post. Again, I'll share all these resources with you, but I talk in depth about how I got that job in 21 days. And I'm about to talk more about that now. But again, I wanted to spend about 10 minutes telling my story because I want to know that like, you can do this. I don't want you to sit at home and say, well, I don't have enough experience, or I don't have this, I don't have that, because on paper, for every single role I've had, I didn't have the experience, but I was able to articulate how I could solve the problems that the business needed. And I'm going to tell you more how to do that. So what's in it for you tangibly? I'm going to go through the mistake that 90% of candidates make, how exactly you can avoid it, how top performers actually ace interviews, because that's going to be a big piece, and actually getting these higher offers and salaries. How you can become 20 times more attractive to your job. We're going to talk about tapping into that referral market, right? All of these jobs were because I met the right person, and I had a strong referral. So I'm going to talk about how you can strategically and tactically do that. And then lastly, how do you answer any interview question? Because some people, I've seen this, I've coached tons of people. Most people spend too much of their time on their resume and applying online, and not enough time prepping for the interview, which is actually where you need to perform. So I'm going to teach you a framework that I've taught Jenna, I've taught countless others, and I've used it myself on how to answer any interview question without feeling like it's rehearsed or you're memorizing your lines. So from Dev Bootcamp, again, to Outco, to Wobot, $25,000 salary increase, $10,000 salary increase, and $30,000 when I got to Wobot. But wait, there is more. And why I want you to stay to the very end is because I'm also giving you the opportunity to get some one-on-one coaching with me so that you can negotiate an offer if you need to. Also, the opportunity to get the blueprint that I use in terms of like the exact emails and what I said to get these raises. Like I don't want to talk in hyperbole. And then also a phone call with me to work on tailored resume advice and do any Q&A in terms of your career move that you want to make next. So 3 areas that I'm going to talk about, and then we're going to dive right in. But I want to give you a framework that we have. I'm going to talk about reverse recruiting, and I'm going to add more context there. I'm going to talk about your big domino. So how you can prioritize your job search, how to define your target and what you should shoot for, and then how to align your energy, what you're best at, and your skill sets such that you can actually articulate that in interviews. And then lastly, your interviews, right? The formula for how to answer any interview question, how to prep for interviews, and also some success tools and resources. And throughout this, we will stop intermittently and do some brief Q&As. So don't worry, you'll have an opportunity to do that. I'll be presenting, but Jenna will be moderating our chat. So if there's any questions, shoot them in there. And Jenna will moderate that such that we have one time or multiple times where we batch answering questions. All right, let's dive in. So for the next 45 minutes, I work for you. Remember that. Like I'm not here to sell you like this is what worked for me. I'm really here to try to transform your life and give you a skill set that if you actually apply it, right, not, half-ass it, is going to actually, deliver massive results for you. So what's the mistake that 90% of candidates make, and how do you avoid it? Well, they don't apply to jobs in the same exact way that companies fill jobs. Literally, if you change this one thing, you would get more traction. So let's talk more about it. 80% of jobs, based on my experience and on the data I'll show you from some experts, 80% of jobs aren't filled. Yet most people only apply online. Type yes in the chat if you applied to a job online this week. Most of us do that, right? And before I was a career coach, when I was trying to break into a new job and I was frustrated at that bank, I was applying online too, right? So it's not that you're wrong. It's not that you're broken. It's just that, I went to university. Nobody really taught me the game. And I'm about to put you on that game right now. So when I wanted to get a job and when I wanted to also be a recruiter, I wanted to learn from the best. So I'm not getting paid to share this with you. Actually, Janet, who's on the call, referred me to this book. It's called The Essential Guide to Hiring and Getting Hired. And it's by Lou Adler. He's a 30-year veteran in the recruiting game. So if you want to be the best, learn from the best. But the reason why this book is great, and again, I'm not getting any affiliate fee for trying to plug his book. I just think it's great. But he writes it from the perspective of companies. So he's like, hey, companies, here's how you should interview. Here's how you should screen candidates. And then in subsequent chapters, he says, hey, candidate, here's how to position yourself with all of the advice that I gave the hiring manager. So great book. I would order it if you did nothing else tonight. And he writes a lot of content. Again, if the best in the world are saying 85% of jobs are filled with networking and referrals, then we better get good and understand how this works. And I'm going to tell you exactly how it does. But again, want to add some credibility. Like, don't take my word for it. PayScale, another organization that provides great content on salary negotiation and market data. They interviewed a gentleman on NRP, and they talked about, hey, 80% of new jobs are never listed. Again, we've already said that. And 70% of the market, 80% of the market are applying online, right? So with this said, with this data in mind, we can actually take action on it. But first, how do companies actually fill jobs? Because knowing this is going to help you position yourself, right? You got to think like your customer. So step one, and again, I can speak to this because now I'm on the other side of the table and I work with hiring managers and I've recruited everything from engineers, scientists, and product managers to people in customer support and sales. So I know this holds true. They look at internally. Is there anybody we can promote before we even waste time putting it on the market, right? So they're looking at these people internally, and internally, there's a bunch of internal competition for people who are shooting their shot, right? So you have internal competition. But the next step, which is the second most used channel for making hires, is referrals. And we've talked about this. So this is looking at their network, looking at their employees network and saying, you know, can we speak to Danielle because she knows Christy who works in marketing and Christy spoke very highly of Danielle. Great, right? Why? Because it saves them time and money, right? So Cultivated Culture, great website. Shout out to Austin Bellcat. But he wrote this blog post on referrals are the most effective way to get hired. So again, most referrals, most hires happen through it. And referrals actually on average get hired faster and get paid more. So you need to tap into the referral economy. So I would again, check his work out. Like I think me and him are in kind of the same race trying to help people tap into this knowledge base. And he also wrote a good blog post on COVID-19, certain industries that are being impacted, certain companies that are doing more hiring than others. So I would check that out. No need to try to remember now. I'm going to send out an email with a PDF that has all of these resources. So don't worry about that for now. And then step 3 is resume search. So this is when they're looking at your skills, your language, the keywords on your resume. They're looking at that Rubik's Cube of information that aligns with the role and the responsibilities of the function, right? And on average, recruiters take 6 seconds to scan your resume, right? So we're going to talk a little bit later about, okay, how do you optimize and make it such that you actually convert that 6 seconds? But this is something to be aware of, because if you're not getting a referral, then all you really have is 6 seconds. So similar to a YouTube ad, your resume can and will get skipped. So we're going to talk about how to overcome this challenge. And then the very last step is they post online, right? That's when they're trying to get some inbound attention. That's when they kind of blast on their social media, we're hiring. But again, on this left side, this is where most people are applying. And this is how most people are feeling, because they're probably getting automatic rejects in emails. But you got to ask yourself, do you want to be on this side of the pie? Or do you want to be on Carlton on this side of the pie, dancing your way to a new offer, dancing your way to a new job that you love? And it all starts with this mindset shift. And we're going to talk tactically how to do this. But first, you got to make the mental shift to say, I will not apply online and I will prioritize referrals. Because if you focus on the hidden job market, getting referrals, you can get your dream job twice as fast. Because in the public market, meaning when you apply online, they're only looking at your skills and experience. They don't trust you. They don't know you. And the volume is so high when people apply online, all they can do is look at keywords. So they're not really looking at you as a person. But in the hidden market, if you get a referral, they're actually looking at you as a whole person. Okay, Christy is, Janet was referred by Christy and we can trust Christy. So now we're looking at Janet and saying, oh, okay, we're looking at your past performance and your potential to be successful. And I know this firsthand because when I was hired at Dev Bootcamp, this was the resume that they interviewed with me. This is the resume that got me the interview, should I say. I'm a recruiter. I think this resume, pardon my French, I think this resume is shit. It's pretty bad. It's formatted terribly. But again, I had a strong referral and they were able to look past my poor resume, in my opinion. But what I will say is know your audience. I knew my audience and I thought Dev Bootcamp would appreciate this type of resume. So I tailored my my resume to that extent. But again, even if you aren't the best on paper, if you get a strong referral, they can look past that. So that's why we want to prioritize it. And remember this number, 1 in 250 online applications gets hired. So stop wasting your time there, folks. And then 1 in 4 referrals gets hired. Don't have to do the math. You're 20 times more likely to get hired with a referral. And I know what you're thinking at this point. Anthony, this is great and all, but how? How, Sway? How will you do this? I need answers. And I'm going to tell you exactly how now. So that's how you can be, 20x your chances of landing the job. Now let's talk tangibly. How do you do that? Well, it starts with job search like a recruiter, right? That's why we're all here. I named it that for a reason. And I'm going to show you this 3-tiered approach and how you can do that. It starts with reverse recruiting. And before I dive in here, what I want to say is this is a life skill. Even if you don't use this to find a job, You can use this to start your own company. You can use this to, reach out to investors or angel investors or seed investors to raise capital. And if you master this skill that I'm about to teach you, you'll never be afraid to find work again. Because you're like, okay, regardless of what industry I want to get in, reverse recruiting, if I use that skill set, I can get my job. And if you use the skill set, you can also solve really hard problems, right? We can't change the world if we don't have resources, if we don't have people to help us. And the skill set I'm about to teach you, even if you don't use it to get a job, you can use it to maybe reach out to people to solve a really hard problem that you're facing, right? So how do recruiters recruit? This is literally a look into my day job. So let's dive right into this. So again, like I said, step 4, we post on our job board, right? We do that. But after we do that, I need to start reaching out to people. So again, as you can see here, I'm hiring a machine learning engineer. I'm not an expert in machine learning or AI, but I'm a pretty good recruiter. And I use the technique I'm about to show you to reach out to people. So I saw Heidi. I thought her skill set aligned with what we were looking for. And I said, hey, I'm impressed with your career trajectory thus far, especially your focus on ML and working in healthcare. I'm reaching out to start a long-term dialogue. At bare minimum, let's connect. Would love to talk to you. Then she accepted my LinkedIn request and I said, hey, I see that you're busy. I acknowledge that she's busy and her time is valuable. Since we've never spoken before, let me know if you don't have the bandwidth to do that. Would you be open to an exploratory convo next week? And then I'm not doing the back and forth of like, what time works best for you? I lay out the red carpet for her and I say, here, pick some of the times that are listed on my calendar. This happened on February 13th. The next day, Heidi says, hey, I booked a time with you. So literally you can use this technique I'm showing you, and I'll show how you can use this for your particular use case. But I want you to just start to see this is what the messaging looks like. I use it every day, and you can do it too. Here's another example of an iOS developer. Again, hey, I'm impressed with your background, especially your passion for iOS. Let's talk. Sent me his resume, sent that message. Again, I'm using the same exact messaging template. And he was able to click that and schedule some time with me. Sonia, who had a very impressive background. I took, again, what you want to take away here, the key takeaway here, folks, is take some time to target the companies that you want to work for and take some time to do some thoughtful outreach. And I'm going to provide some templates to help you, but you can see this. Like, I actually took the time to read her profile. I said, your awareness of cultural nuances and your experience in Africa and the Middle East and et cetera. And that resonated with her. She wrote me a whole paragraph on how she was excited to talk, and she actually scheduled time with me. Desmond was trying to, recruit an engineer. Use the same thing. This time I said, hey, we actually have some mutual connections. Would love to talk to you. So in this case, Desmond actually said no. However, even when someone says a no can turn into a yes. So even if someone says no, what you want to say is, hey, do you know anyone else I can talk to? And that's what I said to Desmond. Do you know any engineers I can talk to in your network? And he actually said, hey, I can share it on my internal job board on DevColor. And if you don't know, DevColor is one of the biggest communities for Black engineers in the Bay Area and nationally in the US. So even though this gentleman wasn't a fit for my conversation, I followed up with a thoughtful question, and he's actually said, hey, actually, I can do you a favor. So that's reverse recruiting in a nutshell. Well, actual recruiting in a nutshell. Now, how do you reverse recruit and start to actually use this for yourself? Again, you can use it for any single industry, any type of role, any level of seniority you're going for, but it comes down to these tried and true templates and frameworks that I'm going to show you. And this is going to allow you to land a referral in 14 days. You already saw it. Some of these people scheduled conversations with me the next day. But before I show you how it works, I want to also touch on why it works. So we already talked about referrals get hired quicker. On average, they get paid more. And it's just 20 times more likely for you to get hired. Another thing and another resource you can check out is the Balanced Careers. So they have a great career resource blog, but they did a great blog post on employee referrals. And this is another reason why referrals are so important, because companies pay referrals because they're a trusted source. Again, if Janet worked with Crystal, right, then inherently I trust Jared as much as I trust Crystal, right? Like I now have more trust in that person and are more likely to lean into their past performance and their potential. But more importantly, from a business perspective, on average, for example, if Crystal worked at a company and she refers Janet, then Crystal can get a $2,000 check. So you're actually saving companies time and you're saving them money. You're doing them a favor by getting a referral. A referral is a win-win-win. It's a win for the company, it's a win for the person who made the referral, and then it's a win for you to actually, speed up your job search and get the job that you want. So tactically, how does this look? Now, before I go any further, actually, temperature check. Jenna, any questions coming up in the chat, or any concerns, or how people are feeling? Is this helpful? Type yes in the chat if it is. But I kind of just want to get a temperature check. How are people feeling, Jenna?
Yeah, it looks like people are feeling pretty good. Crystal said she's been referring candidates and has received over $1,000 in referral bonuses.
Wow. There you go.
And yeah, this is very helpful. And I added a little anecdote. In the words of the VP and Global Chief of Diversity and Inclusion at IBM that I was working with last year, her quote, "A no just means you need to try a little harder."
Yeah. No just means you have to try a little bit harder. I like that. So, all right, I'm glad everybody's enjoying the content and getting some value. Let's continue this. I want to have fun with this. Like if you don't add a fun component to this, then it's just going to feel like the drudgery of the job search. And I want to add some fun. I want to add some structure, and I want to educate you. So let's keep going. So you want to start with your first and second degree connections when you start reverse recruiting. Your first degree connections are people that you actually know. These are people you trust. They can vouch for you. They might be project managers, office managers, salespeople. A good thing that I've seen, a great source of referrals, are people you volunteered with, designers, people that you've worked for. Again, a lot of these people you might be able to text. So start with those people, because you'd actually be surprised with how many people in your network and who they know and what they know. So start there. Because on March 8th, 2019, when I lost that job, that's the first thing I did. And I'm actually happy to say, like, some of the people on this call are actually people that I contacted, right? So that's a tribute to how kind of strong my network is. And if you start to build that out, that's going to serve you when you want to actually leverage that network to help you. But on March 8th, got let go again. Hell tight, y'all. I'm mad. I'm fuming. But I found, because I did some research, I found a company that was aligned with my skill set and my values. And I ended up reaching out to two people that worked at the company. Angela actually coached her, and Malalum actually worked with him in the past at Dev Bootcamp. Reached out to both of them. What I would say, and we'll talk about this later, is the strength of your referral is key. Malalum, Angela, although she was great, she's an engineer. Malalum is actually on the recruiting team. So he was a way stronger referral than Angela was. But regardless, you never know who knows who. So you want to hit up everybody. So I talked to Malalum. I would advise you to connect with this gentleman, follow his work on LinkedIn, because he actually posts a lot of blog posts. He shares he's big in the recruiting community. So even if you just follow his work, you might get some leads that could lead to your next job. So follow that guy. I can't speak highly enough about him. But again, March 8th, I lost that job. March 12th, I hit up Malalum. Because again, March 9th through 11th, it was substances being consumed. It was pizza. It was ice cream. It was tears. It was grief. But March 12th, I was like, all right, let's get my shit together. Let's actually do this. hit up Malum, actually contact him about a particular role. He said, actually, there's a role, again, 80% of jobs aren't posted online. He said, there's a role that's not posted that I think you would be better for. The recruiting operations manager role. By March 20th, literally almost a little over a week later, he introduced me to Kat. After being introduced to Kat, by March 25th, I had an interview with her. And I didn't end up getting this job. But again, this shows you the power and the strength of how quick a referral can change your life. I did the same thing for Wobot. On March 14th, reached out to them. Actually didn't even ask them about a job. I actually wanted to do a testimonial video. And this is also something that you all can do. Work with people that you've actually served and you've done great work for, and get them to shoot a 2-minute video on how you serve them. That's what I wanted to do with Wobot. And they actually said, oh, we want to interview you for a role. So didn't end up doing this testimonial video, ended up getting an interview. Again, a week after that initial interview, got a second interview where I got to talk to the founder. Excuse me. I'm going to talk more later about what was on my resume, why it worked. But I think the important part here is I didn't apply online. I actually went, I hit the ground and I actually talked to actual people. And this is a big hurdle that I see so many people face. They're like, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to be a nuisance. And I'm sorry, I come from a sales background. I'm a type A personality. You got to bother people if you want results. And if you're going to sit back and apply online and just hope that your dream job falls into your lap, you're going to be waiting for a long time. So you got to be proactive and use these strategies. Again, that's the resume that worked for me. All of these blue texts, that's actually links to articles that I've written. That's links to the companies that I've worked for. And I'll talk later, but this structure works because I'm not talking about my roles and responsibilities. I'm actually talking about what did I accomplish? Because all companies want to know is really 3 things. Can I work with you? Like, would I get along with you? Do I like you? Because I'm going to be spending 40 to 50 hours a week with you. What can you do for me now? And what can you do for me in the future? That's it. So every single interview question, every single thing on your resume, every application has to be from, here's what I can do for you. And too many people slide into my DMs and are like, I graduated from this school and I did this and I. But no empathy for the employer, for how can I serve the employer? It's a simple mindset shift, but if you can make that shift, it's going to drive dramatically better outcomes. That's your first degree connections. Your second degree are people that you're mutually connected with. So you want to say, hey, Jenna, I see you're connected with Danielle and I really respect her work. Could we talk more about this position that your company has? I only felt comfortable reaching out to you because I know Danielle. Can we talk? And ideally, that person knows Danielle pretty well. And because of that, your message will convert higher. So I did this with Jin Young, again, an engineer that I had worked with. And I used this to actually recruit engineers. And just like Desmond, she said no. She said, hey, this person that you want me to refer you to isn't interested. And here's why they're not interested. So what I also want to stress to you folks is even if people say no to you, you at least get a quick no, as opposed to applying online and then just never hearing back, or getting an automatic rejection email where nobody even took the time to look at your resume, right? So this is why you want to prioritize this. Again, that's another example where I mentioned a mutual connection that I had, and literally a week later was able to schedule an interview with the person. So second degree connections, always mention your first degree connection if you can. And if you ask enough, you'll create your own luck. So that's where third degree connections come in. These are people that you don't know. So with these people, you want to be way more aligned. Like you want to be reaching out to them and for them in 5 seconds or less, be able to say, okay, this is why Janet is aligned with this role. Prime example, recently I hired a data analyst. This woman, Gloria, reached out to me before we even posted the job online. Again, she had some typos in her message. This wasn't even the best message, but she was very aligned with what I needed. So I said, I would be a bad recruiter if I didn't interview this woman, right? So you want to be reaching out to companies that have a product, a mission, a particular niche that you think you can add value in. And then you actually want to say, hey, here's how I can help you. What you don't want to do is spray and pray. You don't want to say, oh, I think I can do digital marketing and I think I can do office operations and I'm going to apply to both of them. No, pick one. And if you dive deeper and align yourself with at least just one role, it's going to come off as more professional and more prepared in the eyes of the employer. Also, be solving problems. I hired a product manager. I didn't know how the hell to hire a product manager. So I actually reached out to our product manager and said, I see you actually write a lot of great content, and I've never hired a product manager before. Can you help me? And because I was specific in how I needed her help, she was able to say, hey, yeah, glad you, again, I kind of stroked her ego because I did my research. Hey, I read your blog post. And she gave me a lot of great advice that actually helped me perform in my day job. So again, folks, even if you don't use this to find jobs, you can use this to solve really hard problems that you're stuck with, right? Because it takes a village. You need people to help you. And then be persistent. Remember Malcolm? Well, in 2017, I reached out to him and I said this. I said, can I buy you coffee? My name's Anthony. I build partnerships with companies. We're free for companies like you. I saw that your company was hiring an intern. Are you free to chat Tuesday? So literally, this is me reverse recruiting, but doing it in a different fashion. Not the best email when I look back in retrospect, but again, even if you're not writing the best email, it's going to get you results. So before I go on here, type in the chat, what do people think Malcolm said to this message before I share it with you? Or what would you say to this message? Do we have any answers yet, Jenna?
Not yet.
Gotcha. All right, I'm going to keep moving on then. So again, Malcolm, please follow this gentleman. He's doing great work. Like, you got to follow people who are doing great work because then that's going to actually add data to your pipeline in terms of understanding what you need to do. So Malcolm essentially said, hey, Anthony, thanks, but no thanks. My in-house recruiting team has got it on lock. Happy to stay in touch. Be persistent. I read a book because I'm big. I love sales, marketing, and the psychology of like, why do humans make certain decisions? And I read a book by, I think it's Jeb Blunt, called Fanatical Prospecting. And he said something like, in God we trust, everyone else we follow up with. And I want to urge you to do that. Reach out to people and follow up with people because that's where most people drop the ball. They say, hey, Anthony, I'm doing the reverse recruiting and I'm not getting the results that you said I could get. And then I'm like, well, are you following up? And then they're like, no. And I know Jenna faced this challenge at first, but once she saw that she needed to follow up, again, way more interviews. So Malcolm actually said, again, I followed up and said, appreciate you getting back to me. I see my office is actually close to yours. Some people might say, hey, Anthony, that was a little creepy. Again, I'm results oriented. If it works, it works. And I said, hey, would you be free for coffee at this time? Now, again, what do you think Malcolm said before I share kind of his response? Or how would you respond to this? Is it too pushy? What do you think? Any responses, Jenna? What do folks think?
Let me check my schedule, super swamped. Someone said, sure, let's meet. And someone said, can I just get the coffee?
All right, so coffee, can we learn more? And let me see my schedule and see. All right, so, but generally a positive response, right? And that's how Malcolm responded. He actually said, persistence is key. Like he was literally trying to shoo me away. He even sent me a calendar invite. So I guess what I'm trying to drive home here is when you follow up with when you speak to your first and second and third degree connections, always follow up. Because that's where I see people, they start to do this, they start to get a little momentum, and then they don't follow up and they blame it on the system. And they said, oh, this doesn't work. Well, you got to follow up, unfortunately.
I wanted to just add a comment here too. From the other side. So Anytime I'm in San Francisco or anywhere, I like to connect with as many boot camp students, early career professionals, people trying to get that first opportunity. And I always thought when people would come to Dev Bootcamp and talk to us and they're like, hey, yeah, you can connect with us. And then I'd send an email. And sometimes I just wouldn't get a response. Most of the time, I wouldn't get a response the first time. It would take 3, 4, sometimes 5 emails of following up to get a response. And now being on the other side, I've had people that I've said, if I don't respond to you, keep following up. And I've had people that I've literally not had the time to follow up with for 4 or 5 months. Because I've literally been that busy. I understand now how you can get that busy as an engineer, but I appreciate that they followed up with me because they took the work off of me having to find their emails or remember their name or search for the topic. I just saw their email keep popping up, and when I had time to respond, I got on it right away because it was on the top of my list of things to do.
Gotcha. So what I'm hearing is that like a lot of people think it's actually being a nuisance or being, pestering people. But what I'm hearing you say is that you actually genuinely got busy, and when people follow up with you, you actually appreciate it, right?
Yes, it's actually really helpful. It's helpful to the person that you're trying to connect with to keep following up because it puts it on the top of their list, and it helps them find you easier, right? Like they don't make them have to find you. Be right in their face where they can go, cool, I'm free now, let's connect.
Yeah, and I think that's I'll say this and then I'll move on in the interest of time. But I mean, that's also best practice in your job, right? Like I work with, especially now when you're working with distributed teams and you're working virtually, like you got to follow up. And we'll talk more about a system for that. But thank you for sharing that, Jenna. So again, how? Like I've been telling you, hey, this works, you should do it. But how does it? How do you actually do this? So you need to start with your calendar. And I know you're wondering, like, why do you want to start there? Because, you're telling me all about these messaging. So 3 steps you need to do, but the first step is establish your calendar. So when I worked with Galena, again, I was able to send her this link. And what happens is she clicks that link and she's able to see, okay, all of these times. And this, I would say, even if you just did this, you can get a higher volume and more interviews. One, because what tends to happen is similar to if you go to a restaurant. Type yes in the chat if this resonates with you. You go to a restaurant and they got 50 items on their menu and you can't pick because you're too overwhelmed. Versus you go to a place where they have some classics and they have very few items. It's easier for you to pick, right? Same thing when it comes to booking time and speaking with somebody. If you actually give people options, then it's going to be easier for them for them to schedule time with you. But secondly, they're going to pick a time that is more convenient for you. So just imagine how powerful this is. If you determine, hey, I have 5 days in a week, I can only take 2 or 3 interviews a day. Pick 3 times where your energy is high and say, hey, recruiters or hey, hiring managers, these are times that work for me. But this is going to be this is going to help you speed up your job search. This is going to help you get more interviews. And not only that, it's going to be great, for instance, when you can log into your backend and, for example, you can go in and actually see, hey, these are all the interviews that I actually have scheduled. So wouldn't it be nice if every morning or every Monday you looked into your back office and said, okay, 3 interviews Thursday, 2 on Tuesday, 1 on Wednesday. Perfect. I know exactly how I need to manage my time. I know exactly how much time I need to spend on doing reverse recruiting. And I know how much time I have to spend doing interviewing. So starting with your calendar is actually going to help you move faster and differentiate yourself in the market. Again, save you time, and it's going to be brownie points when you speak to somebody because now they don't have to do the back and forth. And from a geek standpoint, I just love it because it makes me feel like, I don't know, like I'm Tony Stark. So I'm kind of like, oh, just check with my assistant, schedule some time. So deep down, I love and I geek out on having a system for this. But even if you don't geek out over the technical things, this is going to help you drive outcomes for yourself. The second step of the 3 steps in terms of applying this is make your list. So this is some place where I actually created some templates for you to get started. So the best place is to go into LinkedIn. You can type in, for example, you want it to be a project manager. Type that in. Then what you can do is you can filter and you can say, I want to only focus on my 1st degree and 2nd degree connections. And I want them to be in San Francisco, and I want them to be in the health and wellness industry, right? You could do this today. You can start with this. So make a list first, and then you can prioritize that list. And then as you're going through the list, again, prioritize your 1st and 2nd degree connections. They're the people who are going to probably get back to you the quickest. And then just be active. The more you ask, the more you create your own luck. Just in creating these slides, I clicked on this young woman's profile, and she actually reached out to me. She has a great background, and I'm not hiring a program coordinator or a project manager, but if I needed to, she's probably going to be the first person that I follow up with, right? So even going through this, you start to create your own luck. And then what I want to demo is a tool that can help you manage all of this. So the tool is called hunter.co. It's a free tool. And what I'm going to do is sign in here. And then we're going to get started. Maybe. All right. Get started. We're in here. You can, again, you can pick certain niches that you're interested in, and they'll send you different content and different jobs for those. You can talk about what cities you're interested in. You can select that. And then you have your board. So you have your board and you have your feeds. So the board is where you can actually add jobs to it and add all the details in terms of the job description. But what I love is that you also have a task section. So they're using machine learning to actually put in and populate tasks that you're going to need. But you can always say reverse recruit 3 people. Say save. You could add due dates. But then what's also really cool is that you can say search directory, and they'll actually find the people that work at this company, and you can also get their contact info. Now they have a paid service that I think is like $10 or $20 a month that'll give you more content, more contacts, but the free version is just perfect. And then if you browse in this section, you can actually see different job boards. So you can look at different jobs, you can click on them, you can say, you know, save it to my job board, and you can, again, track all of this information. And what I would say is what you would need to do and what you can do today, this weekend, is actually capture 5 connections, right? Start small. Say maybe, hey, Anthony, I'm really not ready to do the whole reverse recruiting thing. Just use Hunter and start to capture the people that you want to follow up with. Then at a later time, you can actually make that follow-up. So again, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd degree connections. You make your list. You start with your 1st degree connections. You go to your 2nd degree connections. You go on to your 3rd. And then who should you reach out to? Remember Maulum and Angela? Maulum was in recruiting, but Angela was in software engineering. So these are the 3 people that you want to prioritize when you're reaching out to. Hiring managers. To define a hiring manager, this is a person who's probably going to be your manager if you get the job. So if you're in sales, maybe that person is the head of sales. If you're in operations, maybe they're the VP of people operations or the head of global operations. Recruiters. Why recruiters? Because literally, if you reach out to recruiters, you're doing their job. They're on the prowl for candidates and they're looking for qualified people. So if you reach out to a recruiter and you're aligned with the role that they're looking to fill, you're doing their job, and they're a bad recruiter if they don't follow up with you. And then lastly, you want to reach out to teammates. These are people that you might actually be working with. So again, if you're in sales, if you're in ops, if you're in engineering, these are going to be other engineers, other people in operations that maybe share a similar title or might be a level above you. And then the very last step is you actually want to contact them. So I wanted to take all the guesswork out of this so that you could just copy and paste this stuff and start today. But I want to tell you a little bit why the framework works. First, in every message, you acknowledge them. Make sure you get their name right. I've had plenty of typos where I just misspelled the person's name and they never got back to me. So make sure you have spell check. Grammarly is a great tool that you can use to spell check all of your documents and all of your messages. Say why you're reaching out to them. Make a clear ask. Have a clear call to action. Right here, schedule a meeting with me, and then close. Right. So here are the templates. For the first degree connections, you want to say, hey, it's been a while. I hope all is well. I came across this particular job and I want to learn more. Can we have an exploratory convo? Whether it's your first, second, or third degree, you want to sell the conversation, right? Too many candidates try to sell the job. Too many candidates reach out and say, hey, me. I would be great for this role. Just sell the conversation. Hey, let's have a conversation about why this role is open. Let's start there. That's going to be your foot in the door. That's going to get you more interviews. And then all you can do is print this out or pull up this PDF and just list 20 people. And if you printed this out and did this every single day, 5 days a week, you're reaching out on average to 100 people a week. And with that type of volume, it's only a matter of time before you get 2 or 3 referrals that can lead to a job opportunity. So that's why I put the templates and the number of people that you need to be reaching out to on the same page. So there's no excuse. Again, I use this when I reached out to Malum. Second degree connections, you want to change it a little bit. So you want to ideally say, hey, Janet, Crystal, our mutual connection, is a good friend of mine. Since I respect their work so much, I felt comfortable reaching out to you. I want to start a long-term conversation about your work and your journey, right? How did you get to this company? Let's connect on LinkedIn. And then when they acknowledge and accept your LinkedIn request, you want to follow up with them. And I got this question last time we did this webinar, so I want to share with you how you can do this. I made these templates very short because what you want to do is you want to go into LinkedIn and say, for example, what's a company that you guys want to work at? Type into the chat. Any responses, Jenna? Any particular company folks want to work for?
McKinsey and Company, Google.
All right. I'm gonna type Google.
Shopify.
Shopify. Okay. For the person who said Google, what type of role are you interested in?
Daryl said you got his attention with Wobot. So UX research.
Hey, let's. All right, we're gonna say UX. Let's just. All right, UX research came up. That's a good strategy. If things are coming up, it's probably good to type in. So we're gonna type in that. We're gonna say, okay, we're gonna prioritize first degree connections, and then we're gonna say, actually, maybe I don't have that many first degree UX researcher. So we're gonna keep it open, but then we're gonna say Google. Boom. So these are UX researcher. This is people who have the title UX research that are at Google or previously at Google. Now, a few came up, and what we can do is maybe what I would do is I would say, whoops. I would probably change it to say design to get more people. So I would say designer. Let's say UX designer. Boom. Let's say Google. Let's see what happens. All right, 2,700, right? That's perfect. So essentially, I'm going to start reaching out to these people. And again, I would say the more senior, the better. So let's look at Alina. I'm coming to Alina, and then what I want to do is I want to say connect. And then what I want to do is add a note. And this is where you would go into this template, copy and paste this piece right here, and then you're just rinse and repeat. And then what will typically happen is Alina will accept your response or your connection request, and then you can send her that follow-up email. But the reason you want to do this is because people get spammed in their inbox, right? But the connection request actually comes in this particular channel. So what would happen is they would see it right here. So this person actually wrote me right here. So yeah, I hope that helps the person who said UX researcher at Google. And I hope that helps the rest of you, because I know I got some questions on, okay, how do you actually do this? But again, these templates are here so that you could just copy and paste it. And I hope that answered everyone's question. So again, these are examples, and keep moving along. Jenna, did that answer suffice? Was that enough? I want to keep going, but I also want to know if I answered people's questions.
That's good.
Perfect. Third degree connections, again, very similar. I'm impressed with your background, especially XYZ. Third degree connections, you're going to want to be more specific and say something specific that you like about their profile or their background. But again, it's a copy and paste thing. And then you're following up and you're making sure you share your Calendly link such that you can schedule time with them. And again, use the template and then list out all of your connections on the same sheet. Worked exactly with Mariah, which we saw previously. And in all my previous examples, I was able to land referrals in less than 14 days. But it comes down to volume. So I know some people are reaching out to maybe 10 people a week. You need to reach out to 50 to 100 people per week. If you're not prepared to do that, then it's going to be a hard time getting a job. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. And it's a sales technique. It comes down to your funnel, right? So at the top of your funnel, you have people that you're reaching out to. And at the bottom of your funnel, you have actual resources or opportunities that are converting to offers, right? So the more leads that you get into the top of the funnel and the more people you reach out to, the more offers you can get at the bottom of the funnel. So if you're only applying to 20 jobs a week or only reaching out to 20 people a week, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're not doing enough, right? You're not giving yourself enough volume to reap the benefits of the strategy. So if all you did was reach out to 50 to 100 people per week, again, that's 10 to 20 people per day. And even if you have a full-time job, that's manageable. I know because I've coached people who've done it and I've done it myself. So even if you're just using LinkedIn, email, and Twitter, which are great channels, you're reaching out to 50 to 100 people per week. And on average, that's going to lead to 2 to 3 referrals. So again, think of it like a funnel. If you do all of this activity, what's going to happen in your funnel is you're going to get 1 to 2 referrals or 1 to 2 offers. And the reason that you want multiple offers is because then you can leverage them and say, well, I'm being considered for a role that's of similar scope and is paying on me $100,000. Can you meet or exceed that? If not, then I might have to take this other role. And what you don't want to do is tell people you have offers that you don't have. But you want to be able to, again, get a high amount of volume such that you have multiple offers and can negotiate for the highest salary possible. But again, what you could do is remain status quo, apply online, apply, using the public market, but you're going to be stitched out in the rain. But if you want to be like Carlson and you want to be like me, dancing your way to the bank, and calling me and using that 30-minute conversation to say, hey, Anthony, I got that offer. I want your help with negotiation. Then you got to focus on the hidden market and you got to apply these tactics. So where do you look? Because I know you're thinking that. I touched on some of them, but LinkedIn is a primary place. There's, upwards of 50 million people on it. So you can't go wrong there. But what I would say is follow recruiters, follow myself, follow Maulam. Again, follow me and go to this job posting or this LinkedIn posting. I posted a list of different companies that are freezing hiring. I listed companies that are ramping up hiring amongst COVID-19, and I tagged all of my recruiting friends. So literally in this one post, you might have all of the referrals that you need, right? So follow this post, follow me, follow all the recruiters I tagged in this. I'm going to follow up with all of these resources, but start to follow recruiters because they're actually sharing where the jobs are. Again, that's another post. If you connect with me, that you'll see. Twitter is also a great place. A lot of people, especially engineers, get spammed on LinkedIn. So a lot of people spend their time on Twitter interacting. So just like LinkedIn, you can copy and paste these messages, they apply. But Twitter could be a channel that you see success with. Prime example, this young woman who shot her shot, and she wanted an internship working for Spotify. She reached out to Spotify and said, hey, I see you're looking for a Black History and Culture fellow. This is me shooting my shot. And she actually, again, didn't build a resume, said, hey, here's what I have to offer. Here's what's in it for Spotify if you hire me. Not, I am a new grad, hire me, right? Me. She focused on the customer. And she created her own luck, right? And I'm sure she didn't just send that tweet and that was kind of the first thing that happened. I'm sure there were some trials and tribulations she had to follow. But again, stop applying online, right? Like I would say spend 10% of your time, if that, applying online and actually get out there and speak to people. Reddit is also another great resource. I haven't had any success specifically with it, but use every single channel you can. Fortune Term Sheet is also a great resource. What they do is Monday through Friday, they share a list of tech news. But what I love, again, you can look at this and see some tech news. But what I love is at the very bottom, oh my gosh, except apparently there is a paid subscription. I think I need to log in. Anyway, in the interest of time, they share with you companies that are getting funded. And that's a prime leverage that you might have when you're doing your reverse recruiting. So I did this when I reached out to Wobot. I said, hey, Wobot, I saw that you just got 8 million in Series A funding. I think I can help you out. And having worked in investment banking, I know that when companies get funding, oftentimes a percentage of that money, whether it's 11 million or 1 million, has to go to hiring, right? Because the investors want a return on their investment. And the only reason they're going to get that return is if they're able to scale the product or business that they invested in. So if you use Fortune Term Sheet, reach out to companies that are getting funded, then you can actually say, hey, congrats on your funding. I see that you might need to be hiring soon with all that money you got. I would love to talk about how I could help you. So again, follow up though. In God we trust, everyone we follow up with. So this is a great technique. These are great places to look, but this strategy fails and it will not give you all the benefits I'm talking about if you don't follow up with everybody that you're speaking with. And a way that you can do that, you can use something like Scrap, which allows you to look on somebody's LinkedIn and find their email address, and snob.io will do the same thing. But oftentimes LinkedIn people respond, but I would say you want to hit them on every single channel possible. So I know what you're thinking now, Anthony, this is great. I'm bought into reverse recruiting. I see your templates, but when they book that meeting with me, what the hell do I say? So glad you said that, because there's another person, again, I study the best, Nathan Perez. He wrote a great book and he's taught a great class at Texas A&M, and it's called the 20-minute networking meeting. It starts with a great first impression, a great overview, a great discussion, a great ending, and then, as I said, following up. So I distilled it down into 3 steps. But again, just like Lou Adler, I'm not getting paid to share this with you. But if you want to be the best, study the best. So look at his work. But I distilled it down to 3 things. First, you want to understand their story, where they're coming from, and ask some thought-provoking questions, right? Why are they in this particular role? What are their biggest challenges? You know, why did they take the call, right? You want to ask some thought-provoking questions that you couldn't get answered by doing your research. And then you want to gather intel. You're trying to gather referrals. Hey, you know, is your company hiring a data analyst? Is your company hiring a UX researcher? If not, who should I speak to? Who should I speak to at Google? Who should I speak to at your company? Right? Who's the best? Do you know any UX researchers in your network? I would be happy to speak with them. And then always end with reciprocity. Hey, Nathan, thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I'm going to definitely follow up with all the referrals that you gave me. Is there any way I can return the favor? Even if you don't know how you can return the favor, just extending that gesture will make people want to help you, right? Make people want to go out of their way to send you referrals on their behalf. So again, when you're speaking to people, you want to talk about what does success look like if you're talking about a particular role? Why are you hiring for why? What are some of the biggest challenges your company are facing? And this is a perfect segue into interviewing, which we're going to talk about in a few. But this, folks, is the mistake that 90% of candidates make and exactly how to avoid it. It's really reverse recruiting. You got to speak to actual people, apply to online as little as possible, and add value as you can. And because I appreciate you, all of these resources, all of these templates, just for attending, I'm going to give you these for free. So based on my experience, if you just applied everything I shared with you right now, you could get a job faster. Like you could literally log off, try everything I've given you, and you would see a material impact and improvement in your job search. But I know everybody on this call is ambitious and are go-getters. So I know you want to dive deeper, but I will give you all of these for free, all of these templates, all of these resources, everything that I mentioned today. So next, we want to talk about how top performers ace interviews and secure the bag. But two things I want to do. I want to get a temperature check. How are people feeling? Are there any questions? And ideally, Crystal, if you're available, I would love for you to speak about how you've implemented reverse recruiting. Because I've worked with Crystal. Her and I went to university together, and she's actually gotten results from everything and all the tactics that I shared with you. So first, any questions? And then next, Crystal, I would like you to share. And Jenna, can you help facilitate that when we start ramping up?
Yes. So someone asked, is there any value to continuing to apply to job board offers if you're using these strategies as well?
Is there any incentive to apply on job boards?
Is there any value in continuing to apply to job boards if you're using these strategies, or should you just be focusing on your connections?
I would say 60% of your time you want to be reverse recruiting, but I would say 10 to 20% of your time you definitely want to apply online, because it's not impossible. But again, the question that I would have back to you is that which odds do you want? 1 in 250 or 1 in 4, right? A referral is 1 in 4 chance of getting hired, and applying online is 1 in 250. I don't know about you, but I take the 1 in 4 chance. But to answer your question, I would still not totally rule out applying online. But if you're seeing jobs online, you want to reverse recruit, try to get in through that channel, and then also apply online. But ideally, you want to speak to a real person, because sometimes they're able to move you faster and expedite your interview process in a way that if you applied online, maybe you would have gotten an automatic rejection email, right? So you want to prioritize that first. Great question.
Another question. I hear that you're supposed to customize your resume for each job you apply for. Any recommendations on doing that over and over?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that a little bit next, but it starts with being hyper targeted in terms of what you want, such that you don't have to tweak it so many times. So what I mean by that is focus on, okay, this is the job, these are the titles, these are the industries that I'm focused on. I'm only focusing on that because I know I can add value there. I know I can explain why I'd be a good fit. And then depending on the market or the company, you can adjust your resume, but you shouldn't have to do much of that tweaking, right? Just like with your messaging, you shouldn't have to tweak it much. You can tweak it a few times, but we're going to talk more. But just like when we're thinking about our messaging and our reverse recruiting, we want to think about tweaking our resume the same way. Who's our audience, right? If you want to be a UX researcher, what's important to Google and a UX researcher? My company is a 25-person startup. Google is a global behemoth. What's important to Google and a UX researcher is probably not the same thing that's important to my company, my 25-person startup, in terms of a UX researcher. So understand and do your research, and I'll share with you some resources that you can use. But doing reverse recruiting, you're also gathering intel on like, okay, how do I position myself, right? So your reverse recruiting and your interviews and all of these referrals that you're getting, start asking them, what should I have on my resume? They can tell you way better than I can. So I hope that answers your question. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent there. Great question though.
Last
All right,
question.
I'll take one more. Yeah, I'll take one more question, and I want to get Crystal
on. Does this reverse recruiting method allow you to bypass the application tracking system?
Absolutely. The application tracking system kicks in when you apply online. And if you're getting to an actual person, again, this isn't a silver bullet. Like, you're not going to message these people and then the heaven's gates are going to open up and everybody's going to respond to you. That's not how it's going to work. It's hard work and you got to reach out to a lot of people. But yes, to answer your question, that's getting in touch with actual people is going to help you bypass the ATS, because then people are going to be looking you as a whole human being, as what potential do you have? What has been your past performance? Whereas when you apply online, the ATS, it can only handle keywords. So it's only looking at your resume, as opposed to if you speak to an actual person, they're looking at you as a whole entire human being. All right. So, Jenna, can you give Crystal ability to speak and also maybe get on camera, and then we'll, because I wanted her to share, Crystal, I want you to share a little bit about one challenge that you were facing in your job search before you and I worked together, and then how you've actually implemented this and what this looked like. Because I think your experience will actually answer a lot of the questions that people had and will continue to have. So I'll stop sharing my screen now, Jenna.
Yep. So Crystal, share her screen now.
Crystal.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm not used to using my mic on my laptop, but thank you, Anthony, and thank you, everyone, for kind of giving me your time. And Anthony and Jenna, this is a phenomenal piece of work that you guys put together here, and shortly I'll let you know how I personally have benefited for it, and I'm currently benefiting from it today as we speak. So I'll get to that in a quick second, but I just wanted to give a quick thank you to you both. And everybody out there, I referred and sent this video out to a few of my mentees and friends, and about 3 of them joined out of the 5 that I invited. So I think that's a pretty good turnout in of itself. So for the audience, pass this along. I think it's helpful. And yeah, I guess I'll get started. So Anthony, I suppose, what's your first question?
My first question is, before we started to work together and I kind of started to give you some advice on your job search, what were some of the biggest challenges that you had in terms of whether you were applying online and what roadblocks you were facing? And then what I guess I want to hear is your experience in terms of reverse recruiting, getting interviews, and then I know that you might have some offers by the end of the week, so I'm excited to hear more about that too.
Don't jinx it. That is the goal. That is the goal. Okay, so challenges that I was facing. I suppose I should start with what my background was. So I was at Novartis. I started as an intern. Speaking about referrals and what Anthony and Jenna have highlighted here, it's how successful referrals are. Believe it or not, guys, every job, with an exception of one, I have obtained through referrals. Started literally with my internship, which I obtained through a referral in college. So there's really true data that upholds that, and it's definitely successful. And it's really been the only way that I've obtained any job. So I was at Novartis Pharmaceuticals. I was, a clinical research scientist by the end, and that was my first goal. And then I got hungry and I wanted more and I wanted to grow and I wanted to gain experience outside of Novartis, right? So I guess my first challenge, or let's call it mistake, my first mistake. So I was very naive and also very fortunate that I never really had to apply for jobs because I did the whole referral networking kind of strategy. And so I didn't know what to do. So I went with this recruiter with Aerotech Staffing, and they totally fed me a sales pitch. That's something that I may mention, to be careful with recruiters, because depending on the recruiter, they could be helpful or they could just be placing you and think of you as a number, not think about your trajectory, especially if you're in the middle of your career. So that was the biggest kind of learning lesson for me, because I didn't know anything about looking for a job and how to go about it. And they approached me and it just made sense, right? So went there and I got laid off in 4 months. And that was very upsetting. I left a full-time employee position that, I'd been in for about 3-4 years and invested about 6 years into that. So that was very upsetting. So I ended up going back to Novartis because I called my former colleagues. Turns out they had a per diem temp position, project manager, and it was only for 3-4 months. So it gave me and bought me some time, and it gave me a paycheck, because I did not anticipate not having a paycheck. Being laid off in 4 months also means no unemployment. So I had no income. Because of that referral, I got a job in a month. And then I was placed somewhere else and had a permanent job. And then after that, I was unfortunately laid off, but with severance last year. And that's kind of where Anthony comes in. So I wanted to speed that up a little bit, but at least to highlight kind of my challenges initially and naiveness, actually, and ignorance of what the job had, right? So wasn't that successful, but then I got another referral and I got a job. When I got laid off last year, I was in Boston, same as Anthony, he was relocated in Cali, and was laid off unexpectedly and left without an income. I was left with a severance, but I had 3 months. By month 2, I had no leads. I have a recruiter working for me, somebody that is in the industry and has placed people for over 20 years. And for some reason, the month that I need a job, she has nothing for me. She always had something on the table, but when I'm looking, nothing to be found. Started to get a little discouraged, started to freak out. My lease term was up, and again, I have 1 month to start a job, or I have to move back with my parents, which no. So with that being said, I happened to speak to Anthony. I know that he's in recruiting, and so I tell him my situation, and he shares your blog about how to land a job in 14 days, right?
21, but yes.
21, yes, in 21. And I was in Dumbo in Brooklyn, visiting family, kind of just hanging out. And I read the article in about a few minutes. And the first thing it said was do something philanthropic, like give back. So literally 5 minutes after receiving that, some person from the Natural Conservancy comes up to me and says, do you want to donate to help save the Hudson River? And I'm like, cool, you know what? Donate, give back, let's do that. So then the next day was, and the next step was to network and reach out to my former colleagues. And I thought, what have I been doing for 2 months? And why did I forget that? That's all I've ever done. But it slipped my mind. I was not in the right mindset. I was scared. I was discouraged and didn't really have that kind of mindset. So I started to reach out to my former colleagues. Lo and behold, a colleague of mine, a mentee that I also worked with in New York, and he got laid off. He followed my guidance, and he was placed at Celgene, which is a company that I've been wanting to get into for 4 years. Very tough, very competitive. He was already there. I referred him to my recruiting agency. My recruiter totally forgot that she placed him and that I referred him. So he had started about 2 months at that job. And because of that connection, just remembering him, reminding my recruiter, so I spoke to Anthony on a Thursday. By Monday, I found out about the opportunity from my recruiter. Monday afternoon, we applied, had a phone screen Wednesday. I was in Boston, then I got called in for the face-to-face interviews on Thursday. So I had to drive to Boston overnight and be ready for 8 a.m. interviews. And by Thursday, 5 p.m., so this is 8 days, guys, 8 days, I got an offer.
Wow.
And that was last year. So then this year I applied it again. So it was a demotion and title, but I wanted to be a part of this company and grow with it. I knew the opportunity and where I wanted to be for a long time. So I figured, let me take a little break. Let me take a small demotion, a strategic risk, and then network and move within the company, because that's what has always been successful. And so I did, and I gave myself a goal. So a new thing that I started to do is setting goals. And I think Anthony taught me this too, is just kind of manifesting and actualizing what you want and making it real and setting out a plan. So I gave myself 1 year. So my contract in my current position ends in November. And I gave myself 1 year, so up until May, to find a new position and a full-time employee position with benefits, because I'm currently a contractor consultant. So I started to network about 2 weeks ago, I want to say, maybe 3. And I started to speak to colleagues, and I started with just, hey, I would just love to learn about your role and your department and your function, how it fits. You know, for me, it was specifically clinical research scientist roles. So I asked, very specific questions. Lo and behold, they had an opening, and it started with one referral, and they had an opening. And she connected me to the director and hiring manager. Hiring manager said, hey, look, my positions are temp. I think you should go for full-time employee positions. Just so happens I worked 6 years with this X department. They have 10 openings. I'm like, what? Crazy. And even crazier that she was so gracious, selfless to kind of totally not care about her current needs, her team, because she said, somebody was there to help me out. And I would like to help you, you seem great. So that was one referral. Then I got another referral also through networking. And that was actually through a follow-up. So speaking a bit about, persistence, right? So in September, I was approached for an opportunity. It didn't pan out, for various reasons, but that same group then lost a teammate. And they came back to me and said, hey, Crystal, so sorry it didn't work out 6 months ago, but I see that you're still here. Wanted to know if you're still interested in this role. I have an opening, and it just makes sense. We're in quarantine, and you would be a seamless transition, right? So I said, cool, and started to do some interview processes. And so he shared my CV with the VP, and then the VP then said that I would be better suited for the project management role. That's full-time employee, probably 3 levels or 4 levels above my current title, and actually my dream job. So today I am a bit winded. I know I spoke a lot. I had 4 interviews today. Fingers crossed, guys, like this is my dream job. So I hope that by the end of this week, as Anthony said, I'll have an offer, because, it's not that it fell into my lap, but this is huge and it feels great. And you know what? I feel like I did less effort than going online and applying. So I'm done. Anthony, do you have any more questions?
Yes. I actually, no, I have no more questions. I'm going to actually start sharing my screen again. Thank you for sharing your story, Crystal. What I also want to highlight, I shared this in the chat, but there is, one second, I need to move this. There's a resource called Cultural Queries that can help you with interviewing. But thank you, Crystal, for sharing that, because again, I've seen the growth throughout your career, even before kind of, you got your start at Novartis. And then I've seen like how you tirelessly applied, being of service, going out of way for others, getting referrals, and also following up on those referrals, and how many interviews that you've gotten. And then what also happened to you, what I'm hearing is that like you started to interview and you followed one referral at a time. And you actually started to interview for jobs that weren't posted online, right? Like you started to get traction, right? And you wouldn't have gotten that necessarily, or the odds would have been low had you not had a referral and prioritized doing reverse recruitment.
Actually, the odds have been 100% non-existent. So 3 of these jobs are not posted. One of them doesn't even have a job description written. The VP said, yeah, I'm working on it. but start interviewing. So this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I feel like I have exclusivity on it. Nobody else is going for it. And it was just through talking.
All right. Thank you so much. And fingers crossed, I think you're going to get that. I mean, you've worked with it, and not only worked for it, but manifested it, right? And your energy and your focus is aligning with it. So everybody cross your fingers for Crystal. Again, thank you for sharing. And what I'm going to do is talk a little bit more about, okay, if you're doing the reverse recruiting, if you're doing all of that right, if you're doing what Crystal did, doing what I told you, how do you actually start to secure these roles, right? We're going to talk about that next. So it's really two things, your big domino and your interviews. And I strategically didn't mention resume, and you'll find out a little bit later. So as far as your big domino, you want to prioritize what's important. Again, Crystal spoke about it. By having a goal, I've coached so many people that are just like, what, I need a job because, I need to pay my rent. And, yes, those are things are true, but the more targeted you are in terms of what you want and why you want it and why you're a good fit, the easier it is going to be when you go to interview and when you go to actually prioritize your time. Defining your target is key. So again, having a goal, aligning your energy. We're going to talk a bit about that. And then also knowing what skill sets that you have, so that when you reach out to people, they're like, oh, I have to talk to Geraldine because she has XYZ skill set and wrote such a thoughtful message, right? Lauryn Hill said it. How you going to win if you ain't right within? So this is the step that I see everybody skip. And why? It's because we're in firefighter mode. We're like, we need to just find a job. And I was damn sure in firefighter mode. Like, Crystal got a severance and had 90 days. I really had 30 days, y'all. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I got a severance and, I can chill for a month or two and I'll travel and I'll figure it out. It's like, no, 30 days. Figure it the F out. And it wouldn't have been possible without prioritizing and knowing what I wanted. So how did I do that? 4 simple steps. So again, prioritizing what I want first. You got to say, what are your priorities? If it's money, be honest and say what that amount is. But if you don't write it down, then it's going to be a harder time navigating that in interviews. Is it your commute? Right now, we're not really commuting, but think about that. Is that something that's really valuable to you? It's no use in having a great job if you spend 3 hours a day commuting, right? So think about where it is. Right now, that might not be the case because of work situations and quarantine, but nobody wants to sit in traffic. So if that's important to you, make that priority list. Again, I've created a document. I'll give you all of these templates for free, but start here. Most people want to start with, dust the cobwebs off your resume and apply online. Start here. What are your priorities? What are your non-negotiables? Is it a great manager? Is it, visibility and praise for your work? Are you an engineer? And you're like, I actually don't give a damn if people praise me for my work. I just want to sit in a corner and be left alone and code. Write it down. Be clear about that. And then when you start to interview, you're actually screening companies as just much as they're screening you and trying to see if they align with these priorities. The next is define your target. Michael Hyatt wrote a great book, which is Living Forward, right? A proven plan to stop drifting and get the life that you want. And what he said was, when you get clear on what, the how starts to show up. And I think coming out of college, I really didn't understand this. I didn't have goals. I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do with my career. But what I realized is that once you pick something and decide, then the hows and start doing activity, then the hows start to show up, right? But if you have paralysis by analysis and you're like, well, I could do marketing and I could do operations and I could do project management, like, you literally don't give yourself a shot. So you have to be very clear and targeted, and the target can change, but set an initial first draft of what it is that you want. And the more targeted you are, the faster you're going to find a job. The more you say, I'm open to any and everything, the longer it's going to take you to find a job, and the harder it's going to be for recruiters to assess you. Because if I need to hire for one thing and you're telling me you're good at 3 things, I don't know which one you're actually good at. And I want you to speak in terms of what you can do for me, not in terms of about what you want to do for yourself, right? So I wanted to create a blog. And again, this is all I wrote down. I want a blog where people flourish. I want to develop my writing skills and I want to have fun, something that I'm proud of. And all I said is that I'll commit to sharing on Facebook. And I didn't know what it would look like. I didn't know what topics I would write about. I just had a goal that I wanted to manifest. And as a result of that, I have my blog, Tech Dairy with me, and it provides practical ways to flourish at life, specifically targeted at millennials. Because again, I have a college degree. I have plenty of student loan that I'm paying off, but all of this that I'm teaching you, college did not teach me. And don't let school get in your way of education, of your education. Don't say I need a degree in order to be able to do X. Because even a lot of these companies are saying like, we actually know you don't need a degree to code, or we know you don't need a degree to be good at digital marketing. Just show us that you've done it, right? So that's the blog, check it out. But as a result of just setting that intention, I actually had people reach out to me about job opportunities because they like my writing. Was that my goal? No, but setting my goal and having a direction helped me accomplish this residual effects. Somebody invited me to Atlanta to speak at a conference. Tickets were $800. I got to go to for free just because I set a goal and my content was actually adding value to other people. So I would also say writing content and doing videos, although, you know, it may not be everybody's strong suit. We have YouTube. You can learn all of this. This is not some superpower that I have. And I had a blog post go mini viral. So get clear on what you want and the how starts to show up. So again, I have a template you can use for that. You want to define what's your mission? Where are you going? And a year from now, like, what would you want to be able to look back and say the job that you have, the work that you're doing, the type of manager you have, the type of commute, your team, your projects, your salary, right? Paint a picture. And that picture can change, but get clear. Because think about it like this. If you were working for NASA and you had a mission where you were going to the moon versus a mission where you were going to Mars, your mission, your target is going to dictate your how, right? So literally doing this work up front, which it could take a few hours. Like this isn't something you're going to sit down for 10 minutes and, oh, you have it figured out, right? This is going to take sitting down for a few hours with some coffee or some tea on the weekend and defining and doing some research and saying, here's what I want. But again, once you start to define that, then you actually start to define your to-dos, your next action steps. And one resource that you can use is Crash. So they can help you develop a digital resume such that, again, you're not just using a resume that's getting overlooked by ATSs. So they have something there where you can build a digital resume, but they also have a job board where companies can look at talent. And then why I really love them is because they have a bunch of career launch guides. So if you want to get into operations or customer success or marketing or sales or design, right? My person who said UX researcher, you can look at all of these and say, okay, well, how do I actually break into this industry, right? What do these companies want to know? And again, I'm going to share all these resources. Career Explorer is another great one. You can go into their back end. Again, all of this is free. Type in the type of job you want, type in the title, type in the salary you want, and then click and read about these. And also see what are the requirements. Do some of them require bachelor's? What are the revenue projections in terms of growth? And then other resources that you can use to determine this are Owler and also Crunchbase. What these will allow you to do is you can type in a company's name and it'll show you these are their competitors. This is how much funding they're getting. This is recent press that they've had. And if you can read all of this, what you'll start to notice is, oh, their product does XYZ. Here's why I have a unique experience in terms of how I can add value to the company. Because I can guarantee you, most people in interviews aren't talking about the company. They're talking about themselves. And that's the mistake that candidates make. But if you talk about the company and say, hey, I actually know that you got $8 million in funding last year. And I also read an article recently where your CEO said X. So you can start to use these to make you stand out in the process, but also research podcasts and blog posts, because companies also do a lot of, like founders oftentimes get on podcasts and talk about their product and talk about their mission. And then another piece, the piece before last, is energy alignment. So I'm going to take my headphones out for a minute, and I'm going to have Mel Robbins talk a little bit about this. She wrote a New York Times best-selling book and also is a great proponent of this.
And when you start to find the courage to make decisions that energize you and that expand you, whether they're scary or not, that's when everything changes. And so that's how I actually make business decisions. I don't even, like, the money conversation comes second. It's, does this deplete or energize me? And if it depletes me, how do you move it in that direction? Or how do I say no? If it energizes me, how do I do more? You are energized or expanded by something, you will do it for no money. You will do it happily, and you will suddenly wake up and say, oh my gosh, like I'm pursuing my passion.
Please follow Mel Robbins. She's a powerhouse. I love her content. And Chase Jarvis, the gentleman who was in that video with her. So again, I developed this because this is something that I had to do. So I'm going to share this template with you all, but start to look at your energy, right? Like, what certain activities throughout the day take away your energy and just deplete you and just are the bane of your existence. Like, I'm a recruiter. I love recruiting, but scheduling interviews, I hate it. So I wouldn't take a job where, like, I was a recruiting coordinator, because their whole job is scheduling interviews. That is in a misalignment with my values and my energy. So start to take inventory of what gives you energy, right? Like I said, this call gives me energy. I had 4 interviews today and 2 meetings with my team. I've been on calls all freaking day. I should be tired, but I'm not, because again, the work that I'm doing, helping you all, this gives me energy. So I know for a fact that any job that's going to allow me to produce content, do presentations, like, that's going to be in alignment with my values and my energy. And why I'm stressing this is, again, most people are like, I need to find a job in 90 days, Anthony. Like, I don't have time for this. I have to apply online. But this is the most important step that most people skip. So please don't skip it. And skill set inventory. So this is where you try to determine, okay, how am I positioned in terms of what skills I can provide? Or if you're a career changer. So crash.co also provides a great careers test that you can take. It told me that I was a detective and that I should be in sales or software engineering. I'm not in either of those, but recruiting is very much like sales. And I need to work with software engineers a lot and understand their systems mindset and how they talk and the psychology behind them. So this was actually pretty much accurate. So whether you're trying to transition your career or you're trying to break into a new industry and just want more intel in terms of what should you be doing, what's aligned with your skill set, take this test. Career Explorer also has a test. So you could take this test and it'll give you suggestions on different careers that you can possibly follow. And Career Explorer actually suggested that I should be either a motivational speaker or a recruiter. So a lot of these, again, it might take you 30 minutes to do this test, but it can also give you a baseline of, like, where should you start, right? So again, get clear on your priorities and what's a non-negotiable, your salary, your commute, the type of work that you're going to do. Then say, okay, this is where I want to go. This is my target. This is my objective. Again, the less targets you have, the better. Most candidates I've worked with are like, I'm open to everything. When you're open to everything, you're really open to nothing, right? So make up your mind. And what I would say is the first thing you pick doesn't have to be the last thing that you do, right? So don't get caught up in, like, oh, I don't know what to pick, and get that paralysis analysis. Just pick something, and taking action will actually give you insight on the next actions you need to take and what you need to prioritize. And then what is your energy telling you? break that down. So that's your big domino. Now I'm going to go into your interviews and how we navigate that. And then I'm going to close out and share some of the bonuses and opportunity to level up and dive deeper into a course that we have in teaching this, so that you can kind of level up and recharge your focus on the job search. But Jenna, do we have any Q&A before I go into your interviews and close this out here?
So there was one question about would anyone be interested in connecting on LinkedIn? So I was going to mention just quickly that we would be showing a link to join the HTML5 Detroit Slack channel, and you would have an opportunity to connect with everyone on there. And I am working on, I normally run a LinkedIn lunch or a LinkedIn workshop in person where we do this, and I'm working out a better way to do this, but I think this is a good alternative for now.
Gotcha. And Jenna and I are also working on a resume critique workshop. I think we have it planned for the 20th, where we actually get on live and actually give people live resume feedback. So continue to follow HTML5, continue to connect with Jenna and myself on the Meetup group, and subscribe to the Slack channel, because this isn't the last thing that we're going to do. We're going to continue to build content and create community. All right, any other questions before we dive into interviews and close out? Because I know folks, again, I want to be mindful of people's time, and I know this is a lot of information to get through.
I think we're good right now.
Cool. All right. So very last is your interview. So I'm going to share with you the formula, why specificity is key, how you can prep and master the interview process and answer interview questions, and then some tools that can help make you successful. Again, 4 simple steps. So what is the formula? I've used this. I've coached Jenna on using this. So I know it works, and it just takes practice, right? Just like reverse recruiting. So what's the formula for answering any interview question? Again, thank you, Janet. Shout out to Lou Adler. He's the freaking best at recruiting. And if you want to be the best, learn from the best. I learned this from him. So again, I'm not getting an affiliate fee. Order this guy's book, because a lot of what I'm teaching you, I read in this book. So I'm saving you time and giving you the nuggets of wisdom. But read this man's book. He's the best at what he does. Follow him on LinkedIn. He's also doing some live webinars amidst everything that's going on with COVID-19. That's the book, but it's called SAFW. Say a few words. So for example, what if somebody said, tell me about your ability to work on a team, right? Or even just tell me about yourself or your experience, right? When have you successfully worked in a team setting? That's pretty important, right? We can't do anything of significance by ourselves. So the S is for opening statement. And the reason SAFW works is because it follows the structure of how we actually talk, right? So S is just an opening statement, 1 to 2 sentences, 10 to 15 seconds, and it might look like this. I believe my ability to, deal with a variety of teams has been a critical asset throughout my career. 1 sentence. That's it. That's it, right? The next, and again, this follows how we have conversation. You're kind of giving somebody the lead info into the next piece, which is amplify. So again, that could be 1 or 2 sentences, 10 to 15 seconds. In my last 2 jobs, I worked with 3 different teams in 3 different departments. Most notably, I launched a new marketing campaign, right? Again, these are examples, but you can apply this to your role and your function. And what I would say is, if you forget the whole framework, just say, hey, can I actually provide some examples of what I think you mean, right? Can I provide you some examples of some work that I did that's comparable to working on teams? If you forget the whole SAFW technique, just share a few examples. Why does this work? If anybody has seen this stand-up with Eddie Murphy, he's telling this joke, and he's like, the ice cream man is coming. And the joke is that the ice cream man is coming and he gets his ice cream and he's teasing these other kids because this one kid, he's like, oh, like, you can't afford ice cream. Like, I have ice cream and you don't. He's dancing around. He's doing all this jucking and, you know, jiving. And then he drops his ice cream and he's freaking pissed. Why do I share that? I got to the punchline. And it's the same thing in comedy, right? If we're watching great comics, and we, you know, comedy is subjective, but all great comics get to the punchline. They don't tell you a story that doesn't end because you check out. So two minutes is the ideal space, 2 to 3 minutes to answer a question. But you want to get to the punchline. So many candidates start and maybe even start strong, but they just ramble and ramble and ramble. So you're going to be able to get to the punchline if you just practice more. But keep this in mind. When someone asks you a question, get to the freaking point. Don't tell them your life story. Like, it's your job to market yourself. You're selling yourself. So they don't need to know everything. And then lastly, wrap it up. Hey, this is typical of how I get involved with teams. And you're done. So that's SAFW. Opening statement, amplify it. Again, if you forget the whole technique, think about the question that they ask you, whether it's, why do you want to work here? What's your biggest strength or weakness? You know, have you worked in a team environment? Just give them examples. And we'll talk about more in the prep, but the more that you prep, the more that you have examples that can apply to almost 80 to 90% of the questions that you're going to be asked. Opening statement. Again, I believe this is the template that you can follow. I believe my ability to do X would make me great at Y. Amplify it previously and then insert proof of what you did. And if you forget the whole damn thing, just say, hey, can I provide you some examples of my work? And that's what's going to allow you to build out your success database. So I have, again, all of this data leads into my resume. All of this is stuff that I did, whether it's podcasts, blog posts, panels that I've been on, volunteer opportunities, times where I've worked with Starting Block, where I've given back to the community through Hack the Hood. But what I want to share is this is very important because if you get this right, you've essentially filled out and completed your resume and your LinkedIn. Because all of the things that you're going to say in your interview, ideally, are those are the strongest things that are listed on your resume. So if you actually prioritize prepping for the interview before you even touch your resume, you're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And I know that's counterintuitive, but it works. I've done it. Jenna's done it. Crystal's even doing it. And as a bonus, what you can add in all of these interviews, you can ask people, hey, are these the type of skills that would be valuable in this role? Would this be valuable for your team? Because a lot of times we have anxiety. We get off the phone and we're like, did we do good? Screw all that. Ask them in the interview how you did. And here's a professional way to do it. You can also say, hey, pull up on them. Are there any gaps in my skill set that you're concerned about? I like to address them if possible. So instead of guessing if you're a good fit for roles, force the conversation. Even if you have a poor recruiter or you have somebody who's giving you a poor interview and they're just trying to check boxes and they're not even acknowledging you as a human being, it's still your responsibility to get a fair interview. Let me repeat that again. It's your responsibility to get a fair interview. And you do it by using this technique and also asking great questions like these. So I wanted to do a SAFW freestyle. Why? Because I spit hot fire. That's why. And I don't want to sit in my ivory tower and sit here and be like, oh, this works. No, like what I'm going to do is open it up for questions, throw them at me, and I'll freestyle and give you an SAFW response to those questions to show you like, I can do this, but I'm well practiced such that, you know, I can do it anytime. And if you practice, you can get to the level that I'm at right now. Jenna, any initial questions?
Not yet, but I'll kick us off. So tell me about a time when you failed at something and how you overcame it.
Yeah. That's a great question, Jenna. And I feel like adversity is a good friend of mine. Last year on March 8th, I was let go from Outco. They changed their business model, and they said, hey, you've done some great work, but we're shifting the business and we don't really need your services anymore. So what I did was I reached out to all of the partners and companies that I was working with. And I know that I didn't want to be in a non-compete clause, and I didn't want to steal that talent I was working with. But I reached out to them and just said, hey, this is my last day. Would love to continue working with you. And out of the 7 people I reached out to, 3 of them got back and said, hey, we still want to work with you. And in 21 days, I was actually able to land an offer with that company. Again, 21 days from the day that I was let go from that job. So that was a time where, again, I didn't know, what my next job would be. I needed to find it fast. And I needed to be aligned with what I was doing so that I could succeed. So that's a time where I had to overcome a challenge, where I had to do it quickly, and why I think I'm resourceful enough to add a lot of value to your team. Does that answer your question, Jenna?
Yes, it's a great answer.
Cool. And again, like, I didn't use every single facet of the SAFW, but the key was I provided an example of a time I had to overcome adversity, right? And if I were speaking to a particular company and they had a particular problem that they were trying to solve, I would try to spin that story within the lens of like what they need, right? So again, if they needed to solve a problem really fast, I'd be like, well, I found my job in only 21 days. Clearly, I can solve problems really quickly. All right, any others?
So our next question is what, and I'm sure a lot of people on this call probably have gotten or will get this question.
Yeah.
So why are you looking to transition careers into another field after accumulating so much experience in another field?
Yeah. Why am I? All right. So this is a good question. And I definitely empathize with you because what I'm hearing your concern is how I'm able to transfer my skills and apply it to solve the challenges and problems that you need to address. So let me address that head on. The reason that I'm making the pivot is actually because I've been taking a lot of different courses offline, and I see that digital marketing is somewhere that I thrive. Previously, I've been a career coach, but digital marketing is somewhere that I thrive. And the reason that I'm making the switch is because I really did some self-inventory, did some meditation, did some travel, got to know myself, did some internal work. This guy, Jay Shetty, quote, which is, you can only take the world as far as you've traveled internally. And I've done a lot of internal work. And I know that the role that you have not only aligns with my skill set, but would also align with my energy, right? The work that you're doing, when I do it, I'm lit up, I'm energized. And I can tell you more examples of why I'm particularly, positioned to add value in that role. But to answer your question full on, why am I making this transition? Well, I have a skill set that I think I can leverage to add a lot of value to your team, which I can talk about more. But also, I recognize your role, your company aligns with my values and my energy, right? Doing this work is actually going to light me up every day. And because of that, I'm going to actually be a more valuable member of your team because of it. Hope that answered your question, and happy to provide some examples of how I can specifically do that. But I wanted to address your why in your question. Did I answer it at all? I just want to be clear. Boom.
Yes. So they said, great answer, much appreciated.
Cool. And yeah, another thing that you can do is always ask people, did I answer your question? Does that make sense? And what you want to do is you want to get people in the posture and in the habit of saying yes. Because the more that they're saying yes, the more than likely they're going to pass you on to the next interview. All right, cool. I'm going to stop there, but type yes in the chat if that was helpful. I didn't want to sit up here and just say, hey, do this. I've actually practiced this. I've coached Jenna and others on how to use it. And I know it works. So you gotta practice. And you're allowed, and you can create specificity because specificity rules if you practice. So the biggest pain point I see with hiring managers is they're like, I interviewed Jenna, she was great, but like I couldn't get a sense, and I couldn't find any data to prove that she could do the job that we have, right? Because a lot of times candidates ramble, they don't give specific examples. So you want to give specific key examples. That's why the prep is so important. And I was on a podcast recently on the crash.co podcast, and hiring is buying, right? It's a big investment. So if you, I mean, I'm sure you probably ordered something on Amazon in the past 30 days, but whether you're going to go on Amazon or whether you're going to go and spend $10 on a cheeseburger, you're going to look at reviews. So think about, or even if you're going to look at an Airbnb, so put yourself in the shoes of a hiring manager. Maybe you got a good referral, maybe you didn't. But at the end of the day, they're looking for data to say, okay, Geraldine can do the job. And it's your job to provide that data, right? But all they're looking is for a review. They're looking for a positive review to say, oh, like this person actually did that job. And we all do this, whether you're booking an Airbnb or you're spending $12 on lunch. So always try to be specific. How do you do that? Again, I got another formula for you, XYZ formula. You can say, I accomplish X as measured by Y by doing Z, start with an active verb, talk about what you accomplish, and then say how you achieved that goal and what was the impact. Laszlo Bock, again, I'm going to share this with everybody, but he wrote a great blog post. You can Google Laszlo Bock winning resume and it'll come up. But for example, if you were a veteran transitioning back into civilian life and wanted a role, because I've worked with some that have gone through boot camps, instead of saying I trained deployment units, talk about how many people you trained, right? What was the impact of that training, right? Did it increase proficiency? Did it increase effectiveness? Even if you were in sales, because I know I got my start. You know, I worked at IHOP, one of my first jobs. One of my first jobs after that was Home Depot, right? So a lot of us get our start in the sales and the service business. But even here, if you say I was a team member and talked about percentage increases and what you specifically accomplished, it's way more impressive than achieved annual business plan commitments. True, but one is more impressive than that next. And the last point I'll make on this is recruiters and hiring managers love specificity. Even if your accomplishments don't seem impressive, recruiters will nevertheless love the specificity. Served 85 customers per day with 100% accuracy sounds good, even if you were bagging groceries, right? And again, now you know, this is why I was using numbers in my resume. This is why I'm talking about actual results, right? I worked with 250 students. I directly connected people with their jobs. Jenna is one of those people, right? I help people negotiate for more salaries, right? And again, maybe you weren't in sales where you can easily quantify role, but there's ways to quantify, and I can send some resources, and there'll be some resources in the resource bank when we follow up. But next is the prep. So take a look at your resume and set a timer for 10 seconds and circle everything that stands out. If you don't like what you see, you have work to do, right? But this is literally allowing you to empathize with with recruiters and hiring managers because they have very little time. Highlight your track record and something that's special about you. And again, prepping for your interviews, that's going to give you the ammunition for what should be on your resume. So what I would do is start with a note card or just open up a notebook and then talk about what is your goal? Again, we talked about this with the big domino. What companies have you worked for? Have you been promoted? And more importantly, what accomplishments do you have? And then at the very bottom, talk about some special interests or awards you have. I did see some people get interviews because they talked about being a marathon runner, and the hiring manager just ended up being a marathon runner because they mentioned it that actually built rapport with them and they were able to kick it off. That's not a guarantee, but you want to talk about it. Again, the Muse, I'll share this when we follow up, but they have a great blog post on how do you quantify your resume when maybe you don't work with numbers, right? Or had a sales job. Here's how I've done it. Here's how I'll continue to do it. Here's how I've documented. You can do the same. But this takes 8 to 10 hours. And that's prepping for your interviews, determining who you are, your value proposition, the skill set that you have, why you would be good for a company, and then documenting what have you accomplished. And a good way to think about this is what are the things that people tell you that you're good at that you don't give yourself credit for? Because Jenna is a prime culprit for that. When we were at Dev Bootcamp, she worked to get about 40 people free tickets to a conference that was a developer conference. And that wasn't her job. She went out of her way to do that. But she was just like, it needed to be done, so I did it. But I was like, Jenna, put that on your resume. That's impressive. You actually went out of your way. You did some reverse recruiting. You helped multiple people. You added value. Those tickets were worth $20,000, right? So the things that you don't give yourself credit for, those are probably your superpowers, right? So I know that's often a struggle with candidates. So start to survey your first and second degree connections and say, what am I really good at that I don't give myself credit for? That's an area that can help you improve the language on your resume and how you articulate your value in interviews. So again, this was my timeline. March 8th, I just practiced self-love. I needed to get right with them. After that, I focused on that big domino. And by March 12th, as you can see, I started reaching out to Maulam, doing my resume, and also prioritizing that interview prep such that by March 2019, I could land that job offer. So what tools can help you do this? Practice. I love AI. He talked about this. Like, we're talking about practice. It's overlooked. It's not sexy. It's not what people want to hear, but it drives results. So practice, ideally time it, right? Practice answering questions with a 2 to 3 minute timer, and ideally record yourself. See what you look like. That's cringeworthy and you might not want to do it, but at least time yourself when you practice. Questions you must be able to answer. And what I would do is sign up for our Slack channel and start interacting with people, because Jenna has also done some mock interview sessions as well. But tell me about yourself. Walk me through your resume. Give me an overview of your background. Again, these are all opportunities to use the SAFW technique, but also to just say, hey, here's some examples that I think align with the question that you're asking and with the role that I'm interviewing for. Another one is tell me about one of your most significant professional accomplishments. So again, you want to create that database. What are like the 3 and most impressive things you've accomplished? If you can't articulate those, like, don't even start on your resume yet. Start being able to articulate them verbally. And then once you can, it's going to be easy peasy when it gets to your resume. And then what criteria are you using to make your decision? I use this question all the time when I interview candidates, and it shows, again, how much prep have people done. If I ask you this question and you're like, I'm kind of open to everything. It's like, in my mind, red flag. You haven't prepped enough. You can't articulate to me why you're specially and uniquely aligned with this role. And recruiters are going to ding you for that. And they're not going to tell you. They're just going to make a mental note. So be prepared for it. So that's your interviews. Again, the formula, why specificity works, the prep, and the success tools. So as we close out here, folks, you're in the top 10% right now. You are, Crystal is, Jenna is, Janet, Geraldine, Daryl, all of you, Danielle, because you have this information. You know the mistake that 90% of candidates make. You know how top performers are acing interviews. We covered how you could be 20 times more likely to get your job. And we already talked about the SAFW technique. So at this point, you have a fork in the road. You can leave the webinar now and we'll follow up with you and give you all the resources. Or you can stay on and I'll tell you about a course that we have where you could dive deeper into this. which because we didn't even talk about salary negotiation. But here's your opportunity to leave if you've gotten a lot of value, if you're tired and you just want to hang it up. But there's a small percentage of you that I know are still on the call that want to dive deeper and are go-getters. You're fired up. So this is for you. Thanks for all of you for being here today. But if you don't want to land a referral in the next 14 days, if you don't want to ace your interviews, if you don't want to win your dream job, and if you don't want to secure the bag, then this next session isn't for you. So you ain't got to go home, but you got to get up out of here. So peace out to those.
And just a note too, the HTML Detroit Slack workspace link and the link for the live resume review we'll be doing in a few weeks are in the chat.
Gotcha. And again, if you attended and you choose to leave now, we're going to send an email follow-up with all the resources, a live recording to this, and then also information like Jenna just mentioned. Cool. So everybody that's on the call, I'm going to share with you what we got under the hood. So I want to offer you this 21-day course. Again, this is an investment in yourself. So if you want everything that we discuss here plus more, the 5-step dream job roadmap that I've used, that Crystal has used, that Jenna has used to find jobs, and to exactly know what to do, when to do it, and how to get rapid results. Also the top mental hacks, right? Because I talked about strategy today, but the job search is way more mental than anything, right? So a lot of what we talk about in the course is how do you address mindfulness? How do you take care of yourself so that you can actually show up in these interviews? And then the resume template that I use to land my dream jobs, and also a resume playbook of other people that I've coached where I actually gave them resume advice, improved their resume, and then I'm showing you the jobs that they actually got hired with the resume advice that I gave them, right? And then, of course, you get full-time, lifetime access to the course, because as we get feedback from different people, again, we've got some people in sales, we got some people in design, we have engineers that have gone through our course, but the more feedback we get, Jenna and I meet every Sunday to iterate through feedback that we get. So you'll get lifetime access. But again, within the course and today, you're going to get all of the templates that I shared with you. You're going to get all of the resources we shared, or the resources that we mentioned in terms of crash.co, different resources to do research, different resume builder resources, different resources to negotiate your salary. And then you're also going to get that big domino, that 3-step process for navigating your career and deciding on where you want to go, such that you can move a lot faster. So here's a look under the hood. Again, the goal is to help you get that next job in 90 days or less. So there's about 15 different modules. Each video is, I would say, less than 10 minutes. So we tried to make it bite-sized, but we're going to talk about clarity, right? How do you get clarity? How do you set strategic goals such that, again, mentally, you're not beating yourself up and can stay in the race and actually succeed and be sustainable. And then the last piece, which we didn't really talk about today, is how do you negotiate that offer, right? And we got deep into that in the course. But again, in the course and today, all of the information that we share and that we dive deeper in is going to show you exactly how I was able to do this. And before we go any further, I actually want to give you another testimonial of Brianna.
Hi, my name is Brianna Forster. As of today, I am a software engineer at Periscope Data. So I transitioned into software engineering about 2 years ago. Before that, I was working in Japan in games localization. So I came to San Francisco with basically no friends, no connections, no CS degrees, hardly any relevant experience on my resume, with this idea that I wanted to become a software engineer. I had no concept of negotiating salaries. I thought that I should just be grateful for whatever I got, basically. And I didn't want to come off as greedy to a new employer. With your help, you kind of coached me through it, but I was able to negotiate a $10,000 signing bonus for my new position. So obviously really excited about that.
That's one person. Jenna's used this as well. But I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about the course, but it pays for itself if all you did was use it just to get the salary negotiation advice. So if you do sign up today, the bonuses that you'll get is I'll hop on a 30-minute call and actually walk you through the negotiation offer. That's exactly what I did with Brianna. I've done it with Jenna. I will also give you the blueprint. Like if you're gonna send a message and set up the call to negotiate your salary, what the hell do you actually say? Right? I'll actually give you a template that you can copy and paste. And then also happy to hop on a 30-minute phone call to just do a Q&A with you, right? To meet you where you are, right? Because you might not need every single thing in the course. There might be particular areas where you want to dive deeper in. But today only, if you sign up, I'll actually give you an hour of my time and actually help you navigate that. So in terms of what does this investment look like? Well, it's way more affordable than college. Again, I have a good amount of student loan debt. Jenna's a college grad. Crystal's a college grad. I'm not knocking college, but college did not teach me this. And I paid way more for college than I did to learn all of the skills that I'm teaching you today. It's also not going to cost you, it's also more affordable than a career coach. I've been a career coach. I know how expensive and time consuming it is to coach somebody. So it's going to be more affordable than that. And also, it's not even going to cost you the same as a resume writer. In university, actually, one of my side hustles was writing resumes and helping people with that. So I know the techniques, but I also know what it costs to hire a resume writer. And this course is more affordable than that. Even if you order a cheap lunch every week, which is essentially $500 a year, our course is more affordable than that. And it's also more affordable than a year of Netflix and Hulu, which is around $250. I'm not telling you to cancel Netflix and Hulu, especially during a quarantine, but I'm just trying to challenge you in terms of how do you think in terms of making this investment for yourself. So for $199, you'll get everything that we told you. You'll get all of the bonuses. You'll get all of the resources, all of the content we shared today. I'm happy to hop on a call with you. And again, think of this as an investment in yourself. A lot of my past experiences and past jobs I got because I spent hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars taking different courses that could add to my skill set such that I could talk competently in interviews and be able to speak. Like I took digital marketing classes to talk about, hey, a lot of recruiters aren't doing digital marketing. I'm a recruiter who could do digital marketing. That makes me stand out from a lot of candidates. So I've spent thousands of dollars on courses, but this is a small investment. Even if all you spent was this and you got the negotiation advice, it would pay for itself. So I'll stop there. I'll be quiet. I'll offer it for questions, a Q&A, but I'm going to drop this in the chat and then I'm going to leave this on the screen. And again, that offer is only valid today. And then we'll go from there. Jenna, do we have any questions?
Let's see. I think we'll give people a minute to come up with some questions. I see some people are joining the Slack channel and some people are RSVPing for our resume review. So we'll just give people a second.
Okay. But yeah, I'm fired up. I'm excited for everybody on the webinar. Again, like I get energy and thrive and get fulfillment from doing this webinar. Regardless if you sign up for the course, that's great. I would love to help transform your life. If you don't, no hard feelings, but I just know for a fact that making this investment could mean all the difference for you in the next 90 days. So. All right. Any questions, any insights, or anything that has resonated with you in terms of value that you've gotten from this, aha moments that you may have had thus far? But yeah, I want to open it up for at least 5 more minutes of Q&A. All right, I see we have something in the chat.
So one question that was, or I should say insight that we had a little bit ago was, and I'll give a quick answer for this, and then Anthony, you can add on. Someone asked, Lisa asked, will this work for really introverted personalities? When we say a few words, will this work for really introverted personalities? Understand you said, I understood you said you need to practice, but even with practice, will it not come out rehearsed? I am someone that doesn't normally leave the house or interact with people ever, unless it's something that I'm really excited about and I'm normally going out to learn. I practice a lot. And the great thing about practicing it is that you practice it so that it's something that you're used to talking about enough that it comes out very naturally. So you're not, even if you wrote down what you were going to say, when you practice it enough, you're not going to say word for word what you wrote down. You're going to say a very natural version of that response.
Yeah. And what I would say is, again, I very much empathize with introverts. For me, this is easier. But what I will say is there's no replacement for being practiced, for being more prepared than your competition, right? And it's just like, I mean, to the person who posed this question, I would say, tell me about the hook to your favorite song. I don't want you to sing it for me right now, but I'm sure you could sing it. And it wouldn't come across as rehearsed. It wouldn't come across as robotic. You've heard it so many times that you can just do it from memory. And it's the same exact thing with interviewing. It's harder, but if you record yourself, time yourself, and then listen to the recording, then you start to understand, okay, like I can actually use different language. This is what resonates and flows better and feels more authentic for me. So I'm sorry, introvert. Like I really empathize with that. Like that's not easy, but there's no replacement for practice and preparation. And 8 to 10 hours is a minimum. So if you've done 8 to 10 hours of prep and you're still struggling, DM me on LinkedIn and I'm happy to help you. But if you're doing the prep, you'll start to get more comfortable. And it'll start slowly but surely, but one interview at a time. Great question. Any others?
So someone made a comment earlier. They said the questions about when they tell me about yourself, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are your long-term goals? They said that has come up multiple times in their interviews, and if they hadn't had their goals already set, they wouldn't know how they don't know how well they would have responded. And I think we just have one. So we have another question. What about people with little or no work experience? Can this work too? Although I'm starting to understand that to move ahead, one has to be an entrepreneur in a sense. So maybe you can speak a little bit to people with little or no work experience, which again, different way of thinking about it, but I think a lot of people switching careers aren't going to have quote unquote experience, right, in their field yet.
Yeah, it's all about the narrative and how you position yourself. So so 2 things. One is start with that big domino and be very clear on what you want, why you want it, and why you're a good fit for it, right? starts there. And then the second piece is, yes, this can work for people who have little to no experience, because again, when I transitioned from banking to Dev Bootcamp, I had no experience with being a career coach on paper. But what I did have was two things. One, I had a very strong referral that advocated for me. And two, I had freelance experience that aligned with the role. So I had done some life coaching on the side and career coaching on the side. I had written, again, I told you my side hustle in college was writing people's resumes. So if you don't have any experience, go get it. Go on a app like Thumbtack or Upwork or Fiverr, and actually, if you want to be a digital marketer, actually start doing the work. Again, you have to show an employer, hey, this is why I think I should work for you, and this is how I can solve your problem. Recruiting and finding a job is a lot like dating, right? You wouldn't walk up to somebody at a bar and kind of just say, hey, like, you know, this is my life story, right? Here's why I think I'm a good fit for you, etc. You would ask them questions about what they like, what were their interests, what did they want, right? And if you talk more about what that person wants and you serve that and not your own desires, you're going to get that job or that role faster. And again, that comes back to, if you don't have the experience, you can easily, not easily, but you can go out and get it. You could do some freelance work. If you're absolutely starting from ground zero, go do a freelance opportunity. Even if you have to, again, hit up some family and friends and say, hey, I'm trying to get some experience. Can I do a free project for you where I build your website? Right? You got to think outside the box. Hope that answers your question. It is a challenge. It's not easy. I don't want to make it seem as, oh, just go get experience. No, it's not easy. But if you think strategically about, do I already have this experience? Right? And if not, can I go do a project that might take me a week to show how I have it? Right? Because Austin Belcac talks a lot about doing a value validation project, whereby you send a company a pitch where you say, hey, here's what I can do for you and why. And crash.co can help you create a virtual pitch. So again, you can use some of those resources. It's not easy, but put yourselves in the position of a company. If you are an entrepreneur, if you started a company and the business is your baby, you're not just going to hire anybody. You want proof that they can do the job. So if you don't have that, you can go out and get it. And what I would do is say, subscribe to the HTML5 Slack, talk to people in the community, talk to myself, talk to Jenna, and we can support you and think about how you can kind of position yourself. But that's the general framework in terms of the mindset that you want to have going into it. All right. Any other questions? I know we're a little bit over, about 10 minutes over time, and I want to be mindful of people's schedules. But any other ones we got, Jenna?
I don't see any more questions. I was just going to mention, it has been a pretty crazy year. At this time last year, I actually found out that I was going to be part of a mass layoff at IBM, and I had to find another job very quickly. So it's been crazy from then till now, but I have updated within the Slack workspace. I post interview cake questions every Wednesday for Whiteboarding Wednesdays, and the solutions as well as different events and things that we're doing. So I would encourage you to all get access to the Slack workspace, because we got a lot of great resources that we post in there.
Cool. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and join the team. I love Victor, job search like a recruiter, as his background. Wow. Victor, please DM me on LinkedIn. I want to send you some type of gift or something for your support. I don't know what it is. Yes, $199 is the only offer tonight. But if that doesn't work for you, and if maybe the timing isn't right, happy to talk offline, Lisa, about maybe just some one-on-one coaching if that's better for you. But the only offer tonight is the $199 for the full course. Again, that goes through everything that we covered today, but then also diving deeper into negotiation and things of that nature. But yeah, Victor, follow up with me on LinkedIn. I want to send you something, man. Thank you for the support. Thanks, Lisa. Cool. Anything else to add, Jenna, before we let folks go? Yes, we offer PayPal. Victor, actually, I'll have to double check on that.
We might need to set that up still.
Cool. Yeah, we might need to set that up, Victor.
It will be available soon.
Yeah, let's sync offline. I'm happy to work with you around that if that's your challenge. All right.
Put a little music on to wind everybody down at the end of the night here.
Cool. All right. Thank you all. I'm like messaging some of you privately because I know you had some questions for me. Yeah, if possible. Cool.
Yes, and just to reiterate, the link for all the resources and to access the playback will come in the follow-up email.
Gotcha. Yeah, and anyone, I know some of you DM me through the chat. If you have questions and want to follow up, again, send me a message on LinkedIn. And I would say the more, again, like we talked about here, specificity is key. So it might take longer for me to get back to you if you're unclear on your specific ask and how I can help you. So yeah, if you have something that you want to talk to me offline about, send me a message. I'm happy to provide resources and follow up. But thank you all for joining. And yeah, man, it's been a pleasure. All right, Jenna, I'm going to let you shut this down. But good night, everyone, depending on where you are. Maybe good morning, maybe good afternoon. But thank you for joining. Whether I think we had 30 or 40 people join, whether 40 people join or 4 people join, I'm just as excited because I know how this can transform people's lives. So yeah, stay in touch with us. Don't be strangers, and best of luck. Thank you, Dale. Talk to you later. All right, let's shut it down, Jenna. I'm going to leave.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.